Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Today we got episode number 24. This is a conversation between me and Hedyeh Zahedi, also known as Kiara. We talk about snake poison, curing cancer, living in Iran, religion, family, and male-female relationship dynamics, and among many other things. This was a really solid conversation. Let me know if you find anything interesting.
Kind of informally started, but if just to more formally, will you tell everybody who you are, your name, maybe credentials you have or you're going for, and different things like that?
Absolutely. So my name is Hedyeh Zahedi. I go by Kiara. I am 21 years old, and I'm an undergraduate student at Colorado State University. So when I do graduate, I'm a zoology major, and when I do graduate, I'm planning on doing a graduate program for toxicology, ideally in Australia, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see where my plan takes me. I'm leaving things open. But yeah, I'm going into my third year right now. So I'm very excited for what the next 25 years has for me.
Okay, so you're still working on your bachelor's?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, but you're working though. It seems like.
Yeah.
Are you working in your field?
Yeah, well, it is. I'm working in the sciences, so I'm working actually with the university at the horticulture center. We're running a couple of experiments on certain plant taxa and their responses to different conditions. So one of the projects that I have working on is it's like a chilling experiment. So we're basically trying to see if this particular plant taxa, if we can suppress the blooming period of the plant so that it keeps reproducing more cuttings. And the point of that is to see if we can transplant that information for proprietors, people who are selling these plants in order to meet demand. So yes, I am working in sciences. I'm working with mammals currently also over the summer, and I'm doing a lot of my own independent research as well. So.
What is your independent stuff?
So
that gets me curious.
Yeah, so the project that I am interested in at the moment is related to snake toxins and snake venoms.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out what the potential is for snake venoms to cure or treat cancer in the future. So the application of snake venoms in the medical field in the next 25 years is, I think, an interesting prospect. Unfortunately, these things tend to kind of crash and burn in clinical trials, at least from what I've heard, but it looks like there is a class of snake venom proteins that are found in a bunch of different species which have anti-tumor properties. So if you're familiar with cell receptors and the way cells communicate with each other and with their internals and everything, so each cell is basically covered in all of these receptors, and each receptor is receptive to a certain like protein or a specific type of chemical.
Combination of molecules, right?
Yes. And so the way snake venom often works is they're not a mix of different chemicals like you would imagine in a lethal injection, say. It's more like the majority of snake venom's dry weight is made up of a bunch of active peptides and proteins that all do work within the body to basically annihilate everything in their path. So some of these classes of proteins can target specific cells, and that's why scientists are interested in them right now, because they have the potential to bind to only cancer cells specifically and leave normal cells alone. The research on it right now is very little, and it's only there are very few actual snakes that are involved in the research. Like colubrids aren't really researched as much. Colubrids are snakes that have like fixed fangs in the back, as opposed to vipers and elapids. Elapids have the fixed fangs. Vipers and like rattlesnakes, they have these fangs that retract. So, but snake venom is used in medicine. Plenty of FDA approved drugs actually use snake venoms for,
Like what?
Like I don't know the names of all of them because they're
Complicated.
complex,
Yeah.
but they're used for blood thinners, antithrombal agents. Some of them are used to suppress symptoms of diabetes, stuff like that. It's mostly related to blood and stuff like that. So that is what's really interesting me right now. I'm basically at the very tip of the research portion of it. So I can come to you with more later on when I'm more read. But this is just like my brand new topic that I'm like investing so much of my free time in right now.
Yeah. Would you say that the field is under researched right now?
I would definitely say so.
Yeah.
Mostly because it's difficult to. Snake venom is really biodiverse, but it is not very bioavailable. There are lots of taxa species that are dying out, unfortunately, and also no two snakes will have the same exact composition of venom regardless of their species. Even snakes within their own species can have like a different composition based on what they eat and you know how they are. It's a little bit unstable and kind of up in the air with the way that we understand it at the moment.
And it seems like it's more variable too.
Very variable. Yeah.
That's interesting. That makes it tricky because you'd have to almost find it under perfect circumstances and also find it not eradicated and present, I guess is what I'm trying to say as well, right?
Yeah.
So, and is it more likely to find this in the wild, or do you think that this would be found in lab settings?
Lab settings for sure, because because within the lab you can control the diet of the snakes and what the husbandry of them is. You're more familiar with the species and the individuals that you have. All of the snake venom that has been collected for the trials that for the research that is available have been collected from captive bred venomous snakes.
Yeah. Because there's been crazy medical advancements from like molds and what was the other one? Do you know much about those type of I know like there's like the big three. I think one of them is like penicillin, where it was discovered through mold. I think that one was discovered through mold.
I've heard something like that, yes.
And
I'm not as familiar with that.
Okay.
I'm only in like the animals zoology major and all that.
Well, is there things like that from animals that we've found?
Yeah, lots of vaccines. Of course, vaccines from bovine and pigs. We get a lot of that. I know.
Is that from that or tested on them though?
It is both.
Okay.
Albumin, I think, is the stuff that is utilized from bovine. I don't know exactly how it works with the mammals right now, but I know with snakes, it's just it's only their venom that we're pulling from right now, and it's only mostly used for blood studies. How it affects human ability. Because interestingly enough, have you ever seen that viral video of like what rattlesnake venom does to human blood?
No.
They take like a shot glass of venom and like a little bit of it and they pour it into some lamb blood or whatever. Danke. They pour it into some lamb blood and shake it around and the whole thing coagulates, becomes one big little jelly shot.
Oh.
And
so it's a thickener.
Yeah, it's a coagulant. So there are a bunch of different effects that it can have, but there are like hemotoxic effects that some proteins can have, where the blood cells will basically just die. They'll just die. And then there's the coagulant effects that other proteins will have, where it'll make the blood clot. So your heart won't be able to pump all the blood throughout your body at once anymore. The scariest ones for me are like the neurotoxic effects, because do you know how? So we were talking about cell receptors. Nervous cell receptors are receptive to a particular protein that will send a signal for the cell to basically have the muscles tighten up and then release. And the muscles release when that molecule disintegrates. Now, this amino acidase, this specific molecule that snake venom produces, will bind to the receptor, but it won't disintegrate. So it basically makes that nervous response innate. It keeps your muscles from working. And so that's where the paralysis effect comes from.
Is there any way getting rid of that? Like, does it eventually disintegrate?
Our body, as far as I know, eventually metabolizes it.
It just takes a long time.
If we're in a state of hyperimmunity, we can, but the problem is that if it gets to your heart, and it can keep your heart from pumping, and that's what kills you.
Gotcha.
Heart failure, kidney failure, all of that stuff can
Yeah.
happen. Some people have been talking about like a vaccine for snake venoms, which I know that's been kind of the talk of the snake community for a little while, but I feel like it might be a little bit of a lost cause.
With the state of things? Is that what you're referring to?
I think it's
right
just, I think it's just, it's impractical because, like I said, no two snakes have a like venom composition. And between species, you're going to need to have a completely different vaccine for one snake species as opposed to another.
Yeah.
So you would have to have a vaccine that basically would put you in a state of hyperimmunity, which comes with its own side effects.
Yeah.
And that can only last about 2 months before you'd have to get another one and another one. And not to mention, like, the damage to your arm that would make. And it would just be, it's just not worth it. It would be expensive, and not enough people actually die from snake venom to make that a priority, even in places like India and Asia. Although it is interesting how some mammals, some small mammals and mustelids do they do have a natural immunity. Like hedgehogs have a natural immunity, honey badgers have a natural immunity. Basically for the same reason as us, their body can metabolize that venom really, really quickly because they are constantly in that state of hyperimmunity.
Yeah.
Because snakes are one of their natural predators.
Yeah. But it's like specialized hyperimmunity, right?
As
Because
far
they
as I
probably
know.
have other diseases
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
that can get them, but for that one particular thing, they can handle high amounts of poison from certain snakes, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like honey badgers can take cobra venom bites, but they'll basically fall asleep for like 20 minutes and then wake back up and beat the shit out of the snake. They're savage animals.
Yeah.
Yeah, very interested in honey badgers. But you mentioned diseases, and it brought me to another thought. Last week, me and a group of other biology undergraduates and some graduate students, we were trapping bats
Okay.
and mice down in Larkspur, Colorado,
Okay.
at a ranch. And so some of the bats that we were catching, we caught maybe like at least 16, I think. So we'd set up the nets at night, and then we'd have people manning the nets, and then have walkie-talkies. Hey, there's a bat in net 5, in net 2, whatever. And when we would take them back to the little headquarters that we set up, we would get a couple of samples from each of them. One of those samples was a wing swab that we would take, that we were testing for this disease called white nose. It's white nose virus. It's a fungal-based virus that completely decimates brown bat populations in North America. It's it's called white nose because late stages of the virus, the bats get this really fuzzy kind of molds on their nose, but the real damage is done to their wings. So if you look on a bat's wing that is inflicted with this virus, you'll see that there's a bunch of lesions and scrapes and holes in the wing. What kills them is doesn't actually kill them in the sort of straightforward way that you would imagine, but this virus, since it's fungus-based, it is an invasive disease as well. It was brought over in 2006 to New York, I believe, from somewhere in Europe. And so what'll happen is the bats that are inflicted with it will be woken up early from hibernation. Kills them during the winter time. So during the winter, the bats will be hiding out in the caves, sleeping, hibernating until winter time. Those who have this disease will wake up early, and they'll fly out and look for food. There's no bugs in winter. So they'll waste all their energy, starve, and die. And it's like a close to 100% fatality rate.
What is the mechanism they get woken up by from the fungus?
My guess is that it's just the irritation from the eating away at their wings and stuff. That's my best guess. I don't know for sure.
It's not like hormonal or neurological or anything like that?
That's possible, although I don't know if there's a record of them having actual behavioral changes in addition to...
Other than waking up,
yeah.
Which is a behavior.
It is a behavior, yes. But it could be... It could just be as much as like, oh, this hurts, so I need to go move around and eat.
Yeah.
I don't know for sure.
That's interesting, because that makes me think of the... it's been a long time since I've thought about this. It's a type of, I believe, parasite that first is in mice and rats or rodents and sabotages the risk-taking mechanisms within the brain. So that they're more likely to be captured by cats. And then once they're eaten, they're in the cat's stomach, which is where they like to start laying eggs.
Oh.
And that's kind of the cycle, because then the eggs are pooped out, and then mice and rats usually tread on the poop or even get into it. And then that's kind of the cycle of this particular parasite on how it likes to live. But
there's a term for that kind of life. I mean, it's parasitic, but it's like... Malaria is kind of the same way.
Oh, really?
Yeah, malaria. It's mosquito life cycle. They live in the mosquitoes, and the mosquitoes come and bite you. Then you have malaria, and all of your blood explodes. and then when you eventually recover, the mosquito comes back and picks up the malaria, and you're good. It's the life cycle of malaria. It's very strange.
What they've observed with this parasite in house cats is that owners are more likely to take risk-taking behaviors as well.
The owners?
Yeah.
Really?
So it's a weird thing where, like, we don't have cats that get eaten by, but there's some sort of neurological sabotage that's at play with them, because they definitely do it to mice. And mice might be more of a simple organism, so to speak, that then they get captured by cats. But then cats that have this within households have higher risk-taking behavior. That's been observed. And I remember automotive crashes were cited, which is weird.
That makes a kind of a little bit of sense. If you think about the crazy cat lady joke, that puts a lot of things into perspective, doesn't it?
Yeah. But it's weird that it can affect your neurological stance at all. Like, it makes you more risk-taking. Even a little bit, it's crazy that there's a parasite that comes from mice to cats to people and will affect you in that way.
That's extremely frightening, yeah. When you think of zombies.
Well, there's also that bug or that parasite that makes like zombie bees, right? Or zombie wasps. Oh. Isn't that a thing?
I'm only familiar with the chronic wasting disease we've seen in deer in Wyoming and Colorado. Are you familiar with that?
I've heard of it.
I've heard a little bit about that. Bees are such a complex organism, and they work in such strange, incredible ways when they're in a team. But
do you know a lot about the chronic wasting?
The chronic, not a lot, but I know it's similar to like the mad cow disease. It's a prion, so it affects the brain and all of that fun stuff. So I think it's in the same as similar class as like mad cow disease and maybe even rabies. Rabies is another freaky fucking disease. That might be one of the scariest ways I've seen people perish is rabies.
How do they perish from it?
So the thing about rabies is that usually people will die of dehydration before they die of the actual disease. Because one of the early symptoms of the disease is that when you try to swallow, you will have muscle spasms in your throat. So
I've heard of that actually.
people will get deathly afraid.
What was
of
the reason
water.
for that?
It's just so rabies is a prion like the others, and it basically will travel up your nervous system into your brain, and it'll affect your behavior that way. It'll just cause weird muscle spasms in your throat and in your throat muscles, and lots of neck pain and head pain and jaw pain in general, agony. It's awful. But it'll cause...
Sign me up.
I know. It's so scary. So people, when you see them in a lot of the footage that I see is from India and Asia and stuff. And when I was in Iran, Iran is such a red zone for rabies that it's like there's a colloquial term for it.
Why is that?
Because there's a lot of dogs that live in Iran and in India, and obviously strays. They don't get vaccinated, they don't get neutered, so they're just running around infecting each other and infecting people. And it's a really big problem in rural communities, especially in Iran, because all the farmers, they have dogs everywhere. And the dogs will often, you'll see them. Usually you can identify a farmer's dog by the fact that they have clipped tails and clipped ears, and they can be victimized by other rabid animals. And it's a much bigger problem in India. It kills a lot of people in India. In the United States, luckily, it's very rare to see a rabies case. But if you are in the Colorado wilderness and you do get bitten by an animal for no reason, go to the hospital, tell them, I may have been exposed to rabies. They'll give you a post-exposure shot, wait 12 days, another one, and then I think there's a third one as well, and you should be just fine. Do not wait for symptoms to show up, otherwise you're fucked. Like, if symptoms show up, you're done for.
Sounds fun.
Lots of fun. Yes. Like you said, sign me up,
yeah.
right?
With cancer, I know with the use of the treatment chemotherapy, it's been stated to me that's really interesting that in a sense it's an attempt to poison the cancer before you poison the person.
Precisely.
Right, which is what came up in my brain when you were talking about using snake poison, so to speak, right? Do you think it'd be similar to chemotherapy in the sense where you might use a watered down dosage, in the sense that hopefully it targets the cells, but it probably will target other ones as well, and hopefully it kills cancer before it kills a person? That
appears to be what we see in the research that is available right now, is that it does snake venom disintegrins, is what the particular class that I'm looking at right now, that's what they do. So they're integrin receptors. They're just called integrin receptors. And then disintegrins are the antagonist of the integrins. So they will basically block up the receptors and keep cells from communicating with each other. They can cause just cell death to begin with. If you isolate the disintegrins, though, from the snake venom, for reasons that I have yet to articulate, they have a greater effect on the cancer cells themselves than they do to your cells. I'm not sure why exactly yet, but The idea is that snake venom does a fine job of killing cancer cells. It also does a fine job of killing very healthy cells. But some of the components that can be isolated could possibly be used to target cancer cells. We're not that far in the science to know exactly what needs to be done, I think. But when you, like I said, when you isolate disintegrins from the snake venom itself, it leads to a much nicer, quote unquote, nicer cell death than the snake venom itself. Chemotherapy is awful. Like the symptoms are, they suck. It wreaks havoc on your body, and snake venom on its own would do that as well. Disintegrins, though, may have fewer side effects potentially than using chemotherapy or snake venom itself. We don't know yet.
Is there a thought to a necessity of some sort of, what am I trying to say, genetic engineering with the snake venom? Is that viable with what you're dealing with the poisons? Would that be helpful?
It's possible. I think we would have to first, I think scientists would first have to understand I think they'd have to understand exactly like what part of the treatment is effective before they can go on messing with.
What should they emphasize of the poison, right? What part of it is needed?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Where even you could maybe somehow genetically create or modify a breed of snakes that maybe produce the venom itself, right? Maybe it doesn't start at that level. It starts at or even, it's just fun to kind of think about this. Like you genetically engineer some type of mice that feeds the diet right, so that the poison is created in a sense. Like that's where my head goes of like.
I see that like decades into the future. That there is still so much that needs to be researched before I think we can think about messing with their physiology. But yeah, maybe. I know you never say never. Nothing is impossible. Honestly, they've done very interesting work.
Well, this makes me think like some people go to the route like designer babies and genetically altered or engineered people.
Frightening.
Which is frightening, and it should be. What is almost more approachable in my brain is like, I know there's a big backlash with genetically modified foods, but if society was taking steps towards that, it seems to me that having your meats altered in some sense, or whether there's more nutrients within a beef patty or whatever that means, right? Whether there's mice we've generated for snakes that maybe it bites you and you have no cancer, right? Which would be, maybe we don't need it to bite you. We'll fix that.
The ideal situation, yeah.
But different things like that. Maybe they have little syringes as teeth. And
that would be horrifying.
Yeah.
Could you imagine you have cancer and your treatment option is, hey, let's get this snake that has like hypodermic needles for teeth. Comes along and bites you and you'll be all better.
You'll be better.
Kids have cancer, you know that, right?
Yeah, I do.
That'll sell that to them.
I'm very well familiar with that.
Yeah.
But it'd be better than death with some versions of cancer.
This is true, but what would be even better
is maybe something we can just distill into
like
our own.
A Flintstones gummy that you could
That'd
take.
Be nice.
That would be really nice.
That'd be centuries maybe down the road, right?
I would imagine.
Yeah. Something oral like that.
Oh God. Could you imagine?
Let me ask you this. I think that a lot of the medical advancements have been really great. To me, there's a really tricky balance between maintaining those, but then also just promoting living as hard as you can to not need those until it is necessary. Does that make sense? Because I think there's like another camp of the home remedy types, so to speak.
Oh, holistic types.
Yeah, holistic types that it's some people would go as far as everything we need is from within. You know, I think that's maybe the extremism as we need all these different supplements and needles and vaccines and all these different things to continue in our society, right? Because there's a tricky balance between those things.
Yeah, there is.
Do you have thoughts on that?
I think that it is more accessible for some people than it is for others. And I actually think that it kind of comes down to a class issue, because living completely holistically like that is obviously the ideal scenario, but not everyone has the same accessibility to like living that way. I think it's expensive. It's an expensive lifestyle to really be like keeping up to date with how your body works, because like not everyone's body is the same. Everyone needs a different treatment for everything. And like, have you ever heard of these things called cold spots?
Maybe.
Sorry, population wise. So there's this phenomena where certain groups of people, some races, are genetically predisposed to certain diseases. But those diseases don't actually manifest because they're eating the diet of the place where they come from, like their regional diet. So say people from Norway and Finland, I think they have a genetic predisposition to seasonal depression. But since they eat so many omega-3s and fatty acids from the fish that's around, that doesn't really manifest. In Cameroon, people who eat their regional diets, they have a genetic predisposition to colon cancer, which does not manifest because they don't eat a lot of meat there. There's a lot more veggies. You take those people and you bring them into the West, the United States, and put them on like an American diet, and you'll see all kinds of problems, which is what we see today, I think. So I think the problem is that people have individual needs that in order to live their lives holistically, but also it's just not everyone has the same accessibility to the time and the care and the tools that they would need to remedy that. So sometimes it's like the most convenient option is medicine as we know it today, the needles, the pills, all that stuff that you listed off.
Yeah. That makes me think of the also like traditional knowledge around what we've eaten for a while and what has worked for us. So I want to get clear. What you're saying is they have these predispositions, but then within their society or tribe or their region, their diet and the foods that have been traditionally available allows for. Do you think maybe over time, because they have such an abundance of whatever they needed to curve that their genetics kind of shifted away that to where they didn't really have a need to have strong genetics against these different things?
Yeah, they adapted to it.
Yeah. And so it worked for their diet at that time. And then when they're transplanted into a new culture and diet and system, and then maybe don't have the traditional knowledge of relatives that would be in the area, right? They don't know to eat like that and then see all these health effects. That's
what I think.
Yeah.
I mean, when here's another a good example of this. You know someone who's lactose intolerant, surely.
Yep.
I don't know if this is 100% true, but I've heard it. Lactose intolerance is one of those traits that we've adapted from. So I've been told that like, if you're lactose intolerant, it's likely that you came from a high status or a royal family or something, because back, 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, a couple hundred years ago, milk was considered the poor people's drink. So high class people who were high class and nobles wouldn't drink milk, but because I guess they're, people, their stomachs didn't agree with it, their digestion, they didn't have those enzymes or whatever to break it down. But the poor people who would drink it, which the poor people made up the majority of the population, they would drink it, and over time they kind of gained an immunity to drinking that dairy products and consuming dairy products like that. So that's an interesting example that I like to talk about in anthropology. Don't know if it's true, again, but it makes
Sounds
sense to
interesting.
me.
Yeah. I've kind of taken a break from it because there's been other books that have caught my interest, but there's a book I'm midway through. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's called Nutritional Degeneration. And there's more to the title. I have it downstairs. But what it was that this guy, I think it was about 1930, 1940. He was I think practicing dentist and decided to go around to different tribes around the world of varying connections to modern society at the time and assess dental caries or cavities within the teeth, and then also assess what their diet was to connect, because you see high rates of the dental caries, but then also tuberculosis when
Cavities are linked with heart disease as well.
yeah, when you see that they're on more of a modern diet, which back then is pretty similar now, where there's a lot of jams and jellies and white breads and sugars and things like that, right?
The majority of my diet right now.
And so it's just him. It's kind of, I took a break because it's kind of repetitive in the sense that he's like, this tribe that had no connections to society, had perfect teeth and no dental caries. And then this tribe, the closer they got, the more they had these problems arise, even if like the connection between the generations was like just one step out of the way, like the family just moved out, they would still have these. So there wasn't really a genetic difference there. It was really kind of dietary in that sense, which was interesting.
Interesting. So there was no genetic like variation between their teeth, because I have garbage teeth. I get it from my dad's side.
Yeah.
My roommate, he has a sister, and she got, I think, their mom's teeth, and she has like 6 cavities every dental visit. But he drinks like nothing but soda and eats a lot of sugar, and he hasn't gotten pretty much a single cavity since childhood.
Yeah.
So did he
Well, I think
talk
back
a little
then
bit about that?
they talk about the families back then. I don't know how much they knew about genetics and everything like that. They might have thought about it as like family lineage.
Okay.
But what he easily observed was like, if the parents were living still in their traditional tribe, and then the kids moved out and started eating those foods, and their kids started eating those foods, it was more like what he was connecting to was like just timing of when it started within life.
I see. Yeah.
Which there's probably like, if you continue to do that, there'd be definitely over time genetic changes, obviously, because there's a influence of the environment and back and forth between genes, right?
Okay.
But in my brain, he kept on connecting it to just like proximity to modern foods, which was interesting. There's a cool, because you were talking about tribes with their traditional diet. There's a tribe up in Canada or maybe around Alaska where, there's not a lot of agriculture up there, right? Because of the seasons and everything. But, and so you would be curious about some nutritional deficiencies because they lived mostly off caribou, I believe. But what this one tribe he observed would do was cut out one particular piece of the caribou, which was later found out to be the adrenal gland. And they would cut off just a little piece of it and distill it out to the whole tribe, so everybody got a piece. And the tribe couldn't tell you, but when you run that through analysis, it had a high level of like vitamin C and stuff like that, which would keep them from getting things like scurvy that we know of and stuff. Wow. So it's like that traditional knowledge that's really interesting of, and being able to survive in harsh conditions where you might not have really available fruits and vegetables, but can still understand that this one part of the caribou will sustain everybody.
That's insane.
Yeah, I don't want to imagine the like error process of figuring that out, which part of the body would do that for you and different things like that, right? But to understand, I don't know, like at least intuitively or instinctually, that to cut this, I don't know how big the adrenal gland's not big. I don't know how big it is in caribou, but I can't imagine it being too big, right? And so
where is it located in people? It's in our head, or
Adrenal gland, it's
Where is
near
it?
the head,
Near
I
the head.
believe. I think it's near the spinal column as well.
Yeah.
I might be wrong with that.
In caribou, is the same.
I would imagine so. I'm not
Yeah.
a caribou expert.
I figured
But
I would probably know, but
wherever
I
it
don't.
is, they would cut it out.
Yeah.
And to understand to split it in even pieces for everybody within the tribe is very interesting. You know, of just that understanding that it was needed nutritionally, even though if you ask them, they weren't like, yeah, we do this because it's high in vitamin C. They don't tell you that.
Yeah, a lot of times they attribute religious meaning to it. So,
Yeah.
you know, a lot of times they'll make a story for it. Like how you think of, Buddha. In Buddhism, they drink a lot of tea, and it's one of the stories is that, like, I think Siddhartha or something, the Buddha dropped a sweat or something, dropped on the floor, and then from that sprung a tea leaf, that sort of thing. So it was like a gift from the gods. I'm so interested in that religious stuff. That was another thing that I wanted to talk about.
Are you
today.
religious?
I'm not. No, I don't believe in anything.
Are you atheistic
No, I wouldn't consider myself
or atheist?
Atheism, yeah, whatever. Atheism is like there's like a certainty with atheism that I don't find very attractive, as much as I don't find the certainty with religions like the Abrahamic religions very attractive either. The idea that, like, you know, and it's based off of, really, in my opinion, very little. But
are you talking historically?
Like
very little.
What? Like, I can't remember the last time I've seen a miracle happen in real life. So, but people swear by it.
Yeah.
You know, I just can't. I can't accept it yet. So,
Might it be how you define what a miracle is?
Yeah. Well, religious people, when they define miracles, in my experience at least, usually they're pretty extraordinary. You know, something that would really surprise you.
Water to wine.
Yeah, water to wine, curing blindness, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Revival from the dead, I think.
Revival
There's
from
some
the
stories,
dead.
right?
Yeah, yeah. I makes me think of those, like, those guys who would basically, like, shout at people in wheelchairs, and the people would get up and go, "Oh, oh my god!
Yeah.
I can walk again." Yeah, that stuff makes me laugh. But no, I never actually. I didn't grow up with a very religious context. My parents came from Iran, and they came about 30 or so years ago, before I was born. I was born here. But my mom's side of the family is secular, pretty secular Islamic Muslim. And if you know, Iran is the state religion is Islamic. So if you're born to a Muslim father, then you are Muslim. And the remedy for apostasy is death. So there's no such thing as a Muslim convert. Someone who converts out of Islam. My dad's side of the family is fairly conservative by comparison. They're pretty conservative Muslim. They do pray 6 times a day, and they know exactly why they do it. They know exactly why they love their God, and you know, everything that they will be awarded in the afterlife. There's a lot of certainty they carry with the religion that they have. My mom's side of the family, I asked them, I remember when I was 16 and I went there, I asked them, like, why do you believe in this? And my cousins kind of just stared at me and were like, I don't really know. I do it because everyone else does it, and because you kind of have to. But it's interesting because Iran's demographic religiously is kind of unique, because it's not like any other Arab country. We don't have an Arab identity. The Persian identity is really, really strong and intense. So a lot of Persians will consider themselves more Persian than Muslim. I, growing up, was never taught to believe in a God, and was never taught to believe in Islam or any of the Abrahamic religions, anything. So I never really had a reason to. And as I was growing up, I never really had a reason to look upwards for God or anything. I was very focused on what was exactly in front of me and the observable world that I had in the palm of my hands. And still, to that degree, I'm kind of the same way, but I'm exploring the spiritual, like, ideas in the spiritual world a little bit. So yeah, I'll leave it at, like, I'm not ready to know.
I appreciate that in the sense that some people, to me, there's some humility in that. And I think a lot of people that deny or don't think there's anything like that would more make statements that are less humble than like, I just don't know enough right now, than more like, I know more than maybe other people know. And I know that it's not that.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
I know that it's not that. Because the positive claim, you can't really, the positive claim has to come with some very extraordinary evidence to be true. And you can't really refute that claim without, like, in some way accepting their claim that God does exist. So if I were atheist, I would have to accept that these people really believe that God exists in order to refute that claim. I'm sure there's some kind of fallacy in there somewhere, but it just seems like a fool's game for me to be like, I accept your position and I refute it. I think it's kind of it's much easier for me to just be like, I don't know and I can't really know right now. I guess agnosticism would be
I was just thinking that.
the word for it, but I also don't really like to put labels that I have no conception of on myself. So
what's there to conceive on that? Because it's just kind of like a, I don't know, shoulder shrug kind of statement, right?
Yeah. But as soon as you put the word agnosticism or atheism or anything else to it, it comes with all this baggage that you don't ever expect. Because people will, people who know atheists have kind of an idea in their minds of what they're like, and people who know of a lot of agnostics have an idea in their minds of what, maybe they watched that South Park episode about like agnosticism or something like that, so they have this perception. That's the kind of thing that I generally try to avoid, because I'm really nothing beyond what I present myself, and I don't really need the baggage or any of the connotations from any of the other people you may know who I don't know. I don't need to be comparing myself with anyone like that. So
yeah. Do you generally don't like having labels on like other aspects of your life, or is it just more with that religious part that you don't like to be labeled?
Generally, I avoid labels unless necessary. I'm brown. That'll be good enough. I mean,
people assume things from that alone.
Yeah, sometimes they do. Sometimes they think that. I apologize. Am I?
Do you want to turn it up
too far
just
away?
a bit? Yeah, that
Okay.
just angle. You're good.
All right. It's dong in my face. All right. I do.
Have you been profiled like that because of your skin?
Sure, but
Yeah.
not by people who should be taken seriously.
Yeah.
Certainly not.
Yeah.
But when I was in middle school, when I was in middle school, I had a nickname that was pretty bad. It was, kids call me, like, terrorist. Yeah.
Was that it?
It was that.
That's
and
creative.
Am I allowed to say slurs?
Yeah. Yeah.
So sand nigger, dune coon.
Okay.
Okay. That sort of stuff too. And I had less people call me that with an air of seriousness. More people calling me that just because they think it's funny, and I never really pushed back against it when I was younger.
Yeah.
Because when you're young and you're like me, and you're kind of, I didn't really have an identity. I was kind of dorky and weird, and I didn't really fit in.
Yeah.
You'll take what you can get. You'll laugh along.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't really bother me at the time. And I think arguably it still doesn't really either, because I understand where it comes from. And if you understand where a name or a concept comes from, generally it can't hurt you, I think.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I feel about
Was
it.
it more of like just kind of a joking thing than a targeting Barb, right? Or
For the most
part?
For the most part. I do get a little bit of it today, actually. Funny story. A lot of people who don't know of a lot of Middle Eastern women will usually pull the name out of their ass, Mia Khalifa. So
Yep.
anytime a stranger, I was walking around Nordstrom a couple of months ago, and there were these like two teenagers, well, these two guys. They must have been high schoolers, but they were walking past me, and they were like, "Oh, who let Mia Khalifa in here? You know, look, there's Mia Khalifa in here." And I'm like, "Really? That's all you got?" I couldn't be upset because I recalled a conversation I had with a friend, because that was a running joke in our group of friends. Ever since in middle school, some kid called me that one time, or in high school, some kid called me that one time. That was just the running joke. And I was like, damn it, I don't look like her. And she's Lebanese, I'm Iranian, you know, whatever. I recalled that conversation. I'm like, damn it, I can't be upset now. So I just brushed it off. But yeah, it's far less important to me than my actual identity as a Persian. I'll go on and on about Iran and
As a Persian, you said?
Persian, yeah, my experience with Iran and as a Persian, and I'm very, very thankful to be a part of two cultures, two insanely different cultures, the way that I am.
I feel like you could clap back on that with like, why you simping so hard on that porn,
I
little
know,
man, or
right?
something like that. Like, I feel like you could come back on that real easy.
I'm sure I could. He was like, "Oh, you know her?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course I know. Everyone knows who that is." And he was like, "Oh, you got any videos?" And I was like, "Oh, okay."
Or just be like, that's not something to be proud of, maybe? I don't know.
Well, I've gotten that too. Is usually when I push back against that, they're like, "It's a compliment, you know.
Oh.
She's a porn star. It's hot." She's
I was going to
hot."
say to know who that is.
Oh, yeah. I don't know.
I don't know. I'm still figuring out my stance on porn, I guess. That's a whole different topic than what we were on.
I think so. That's okay. I think the we can talk about porn if you'd like. I know it's on your mind.
Do you identify more with your Persian identity? Is that a fair way to say it?
I can't say I do, because I'm not surrounded by it. I'm very interested in it. Much more interested in my Persian identity than I am with my Western American identity,
Okay.
because I know my American identity. I know it as far as one can possibly know it, as far as I'm interested in knowing about the Western culture and where I fall. Because the Western culture, it's really young. It's really
yeah.
new. The
Yeah.
United States is what, like 400 years, only over 400 years old.
Yeah.
And Iran, I mean, the Persian Empire goes back like 2,000 to 6,000 years, depending on where you put it. And I've become very, very interested in the founding religion of the Achaemenid Empire, which is Zoroastrianism. I would urge you to look into that religion, because I think personally,
Astrianism?
Zoroastrianism.
Okay.
That's the Greek way of saying it. And
Okay.
I think their language it would be Zarathustrianism. So,
Okay. Zarathustra?
Yeah, Zarathustra.
Yeah.
So
What is that about?
Zoroastrianism is probably the oldest monotheistic religion that is still practiced today. And it's very likely that a lot of the core principles in Zoroastrianism had influenced the three main Abrahamic religions that we see today.
Yeah.
So Judaism, Christianity, Islam.
Yeah.
Zoroastrianism is a dualistic faith, which means that there is a being that represents all light and goodness and love and all of the beauty. And then there is like a negative deity who represents hate and darkness. And these two deities are constantly at odds with each other until some prophesies day where they eventually will have to battle, and then eventually the good side wins. It's the idea of like you strive to have that balance, but more importantly to live up to the spirit of Ahura Mazda, which is the god in Zoroastrianism.
The positive.
The positive.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because there's a line I love where there's a line down to every man's heart that is split of good and evil. And it's that balance between the two, right? That you're trying to promote the positive, but there's always still that battle between the negative as well, between the negative and positive.
Yeah. So
right?
it goes as far back as like the yin and yang.
Yep.
And there's some evidence that Zoroastrianism even influenced Confucianist ideas. But there are Zoroastrian people still practicing today, except most of them are in the United States and in India. Very few are living in there are a couple of small communities in Iran right now. Yazd and Kerman, I think, are the main populations, are very historical sites in Iran. But they're a persecuted people, so they're not very eager about outing themselves in that way. Yes, but when Persia was conquered by the Alexander the Great, and then the Sasanian Empire was destroyed, and basically the whole place was Arabized, essentially. By the Islamic Zoroastrians are not conquerors. They're very secluded, and the reason that they don't grow is that they're not very interested in spreading the faith the same way that Islam was in the 7th century. Islam was very concerned with spreading, the word of Allah and doing it through conquering lands and that whole deal. But Zoroastrians believe that you can only be born a Zoroastrian, and they don't accept converts, and they're very, very particular about letting certain people observe their rituals and all that sort of thing. With Islam, it's like, well, a Muslim man can marry a Muslim woman or a non-Muslim woman even, and have Muslim children. But a Muslim woman cannot marry a non-Muslim man, because then their children would be, the identity of their children would be dictated by the father. Say a Muslim woman married a Christian man, their kids would be Christian. So there's that whole, spreading the faith and kind of like conquering the world. But a long time ago, a group of Zoroastrians escaped to India, and that's what and they became what's called the Parsi community. Freddie Mercury's father is a Zoroastrian who came from India. So Freddie Mercury's real name is Farouk, I think. So he was a Zoroastrian, probably the only famous Zoroastrian that we have right now.
Yeah. If you're trying to lean into that identity more, why present with Kiara?
It's very difficult for people to say my real name.
Yeah.
They have a lot of trouble with it.
Can you say it again?
Hedyeh.
Hedyeh.
Hedyeh. Okay. It means gift in Farsi. And I got really sick of substitute teachers being like, Hedyeh?
You don't like Hedyeh?
Hedyeh? I think it sounds awful. It just sounded awful to my ears.
Yeah.
So I went with Kiara for a long time, just because I liked the name. I thought it was easier than people trying to say Hedyeh.
Yeah.
Because when they say it wrong, it just sounds wrong. Other Persians can say my name just fine, and I'm perfectly happy with them saying my name. It doesn't really bother me when Americans are eager to, or like Westerners in general, are eager to say my name that way. It doesn't bother me at all. But it's just, they're so concerned with trying to get it right that it's just a huge hassle. Like, do away with all that. Just call me Kiara.
Yeah.
A nice, gentle, kind of cool name that I like. Who knows? Maybe when I get older, I'll go back to Hedyeh, but Kiara does its job.
Yeah. I've growing up, I never had any friends with anybody outside of my small little town or anything international. And I got very few little tastes of that coming to CSU. I mean, Colorado is pretty whitewashed in general, you know,
Yeah.
for better or for worse. But like,
Midwest in general.
yeah, I finally got like a little bit of a taste like that. Like, I would teach group fitness classes at CSU when I was still a student.
That's
and one of my regulars, his name was Austin, but that was his American name. And I didn't really realize that till like probably past, like I didn't realize it until he followed me on Instagram and I saw his real name under the other name. And I didn't even like, I was never exposed to that. I was like, oh, okay.
Do you remember what is real, or did you not want to say?
I probably won't say recorded. I can probably show you off record.
Yeah.
I think he was more of Asian descendants. But I was just never exposed to that of like, oh, which in a sense makes sense with just ease of meeting people. Like, I mean, I just say mine's like Josh with a B, you know, it's not as hard as maybe yours is, but it is just easier to meet people. Like food service, I'll say Josh usually because people either right or wrong, or it's a hassle. It's not even like I care. It's just more steps in a sense.
It's not worth the trouble. Yeah.
And mine's a little different, but like, I never knew that was something people with foreign names had to, it's not even like a battle, but something that was at play, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is like people understanding how to say it or
just an inconvenience.
Yeah,
really.
yeah.
Yeah, it is. My dad's name is Hamid, and he goes by Alex. All his coworkers know him as Alex.
Yeah.
And that was part of the reason why I started going by Kiara, because I'm like, it's that easy? I just tell people this is my name. I'll do it. Sure, fine, whatever.
Yeah.
I'll go with Kiara.
It's funny how names work. I was thinking about that this morning, actually. I was doing something different for the podcast, and I had somebody on that also changed their name. And I only know the name blurb that they gave me. I don't know a last name. I don't know a real first name. And I was writing something for them, and I realized, like, especially pre-internet, like you could just make up whatever you wanted.
Pretty much.
And the only thing that came with that was like anonymity. But
Anonymity.
these days it's like, I don't know, it's just interesting to me, like names, and like some people really lean into their name and a family name, right? And use that as a sense of identity. And some people change it, but then like you're almost starting from scratch, which is for better or for worse, right? Like, is there like some, I don't know, some apprehension with coming in from outside and switching names and becoming a little bit more Americanized? Is there like, is there ever backlash or feelings of like, I shouldn't have changed my name, I should be strong and proud in what I'm named?
Well, nowadays I get that more than when I did when I was younger. When people do find out about my real name and what it is, they always say the same thing. That's beautiful. It's a beautiful name and it means a beautiful thing. And I'm like, yeah, it does. And they always say, you know, you should be proud of that. It's more coming from other people, because like for me, a name is a name. That's just what people call to get my attention. And I never really considered it any further than that. I never, this is going to be telling, but I never really considered myself a gift, or I never really identified with the name as, I don't know, it's kind of difficult to put into words, but it's like, who are you really? Because you're certainly not your name, if I can just change it that easily. Because I still have my experiences that I talk about and that I enjoy telling people about, and you know, the name change doesn't really seem to change their interest in me or any of the things that I have to say. So I think when I was younger, there was certainly no hesitation. I was like, I do not like this name. I didn't like it. Nowadays, I'm thinking like, maybe it's not such a big deal. But then every time I think that, I think back to all the times where I try to correct people, and like I do it and it doesn't bother me, but it's like you said, it's just an inconvenience and it's a hassle. But it is a beautiful thing, and I have considered being a little bit more free with that and talking
Yeah.
a little bit more about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Short answer is it's really not a big deal for me.
Yeah. It wasn't for me growing up, but now the more I grow, I'm leaning into want to lean into it more. Like my last name is Erickson, and I like want that to mean something. You know,
Yeah.
and that's partly part of why I do this is I don't want to just be, I don't want to be normal, so to speak, and so I also want that to carry weight. I think it did with my dad, but he wasn't as, he was more of a local type of hero, so to speak, instead of.
Tell me more about that.
Well, he's very strong and competent. He was a carpenter, and so he had his own. I think it was primarily like roofing business, and then just quickly transitioned from housing to snow plowing because they're up in the mountains, which is a much bigger business in general.
Colorado?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then landscaping as well right now. So he's just been a very solid like business owner, but it's always been at the local level. He's not tried to expand or grow, which is fine. It's up to him. But for me, I want to take that, I guess, to mean bigger or to just have more legacy behind it. And it's hard to build that up if you're switching buildings or switching names, right? And so I want that to mean something. I like that my first name's pretty unique as well. I haven't met anybody with it, and I haven't met anybody that has known somebody that has it, you know, which I like. And I want to do something like that with my own kids, of like something unique and also meaningful for them. I don't want them to be called John, even though I really like the name John. It's just very overused, like Tom or Sally or Bob, all those things like that, you know, which are fine names. But for me, I want something very unique for them that I like. But then it's cool to have the umbrella that I would like to build with the last name Erickson.
Yeah, I like to name my kids Ritz Crackers. I think about it. If I had a pair of twins, Ritz Crackers. No, is there a story behind your name specifically?
If there is, I don't know it.
Oh, okay. Your parents just decided?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, he was a carpenter, and you work with Bosch Power Tools.
Oh.
So I think that's connected, just intuitively thinking about it.
Interesting.
But, yeah. It sounds cool. I like it.
That is cool. That is really cool. You do have a very unique name. Yeah, not to be redundant, but I've never met, nor have I met, I've never met anyone who has that name, nor have I met someone who knows anyone who has that name. So, yeah, it's very interesting. Names are also very interesting when you compare Western names to names literally everywhere else, because we don't really name our kids. As Western people, I'm speaking, we don't really name our kids after nouns or concepts as much. I think our Western names are usually like religiously derived, like William and Zachary and all that.
Yeah.
But
Abraham.
Yeah. In South America and Africa, like Middle East, everywhere, like Pacific Asia, you have like a whole variety of names that are just, you know, flower or.
Is that, sorry, is that like for me as a very Western, I mean, I've lived here all my life, you know, that's like very, I guess, foreign to me. Because it'd be like naming your son Strong, right?
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
I did know a guy in high school named Storm. That was his first name on the birth certificate, which was cool.
That's so cool, yeah.
And it just doesn't, I don't know, like, it is just a cultural thing of like having my son Strong just doesn't roll off the tongue for me well. Maybe calling him Rock would be like something analogous to Strength, but not Strength itself, you know?
Also the worst name you could possibly...
Rock?
Rock. well, no shade on people who are actually named Rock, but I would, just saying, I wouldn't name my kid Rock.
If you're named Rock, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Rock.
Your parents fucked up.
Sorry, Rock. Your parents did you dirty.
Sorry, Rock.
Yeah, you should have been chosen to be born a different name.
We've offended one person.
Yeah, all four of the
all
people
four
on
rocks.
planet, all four rocks. They come together to make the boulder. One big rock.
There is what is it? Mercedes.
Oh
That is
Yeah,
that.
that is a
Some
name.
trickle in, but there's not a lot of it. I know what you mean.
Mm-hmm.
Names are weird.
Names are weird, yes. It is, I'll say, as a person who has a lot of experience with people who have those names, Iranians, all of their names for girls are that. All of the boys' names are like Muhammad ABC, Muhammad, that's the name, and then a number. It might as well be a number that sets them apart. Um, Ali, Ahmed, Hamid, Muhammad, whatever. The girls are named like Ziba or Asa, and those are all like it means beauty or like honey. Asal means honey, like the literal honey.
Sweetness,
Sweet,
almost.
yeah. So you're supposed to, the name is supposed to give you expectations about a person when you meet them. I think that's the idea behind it. So when you do name your kid Strong, it's like that's the kind of name I would imagine a conqueror would have for their kids, so that they'd really be building up the expectations that other people would have of their kid. Like, you associate this word with all of these things. Now you're going to associate my son with all of these things as well.
I think you could do that here. You just maybe conceal it, like
How would you do
Joseph Strong Erickson or something like that. It doesn't sound like, it still doesn't sound quite right, but like it's then built into their name, and
like
then they
the middle names, you
yeah,
mean? Yeah.
they can be that would let your son present as Joseph, but then they're like, oh shit, I have Strong in my name and I'm weak as shit. Like, I need to figure this out.
I need to step it
I
up.
need to step it up. I need to hit the weights. But
Yeah.
have you thought about what you're going to name your kids or anything like that?
I was never planning on having kids, is the issue.
I meet so many people that say that these days. That blows me away.
I'm not ready to even think about that. I when I was younger, I was like, no, not having kids, it's a waste of time. It's just going to take my freedom away. Because you only get the context of your parents going like, kids, they only talk about them as a nuisance or whatever, and all of the really nice things they have to say about kids is just kind of, you're selectively deaf to it. Because when it's you, it's like you're thinking about all the freedom that would be taken away from me if I had to care for a child. But nice reach. I would I think that now, as of right now, I'm like, I wouldn't have kids, but
Why not?
I just couldn't, at the age that I am right now, I can't conceive of a future where having kids alone would make me happy as a person. My priorities just aren't there right now, at least. I know when I get older, things might change, and I think that might be true for a lot of the people that you meet that say that. Did you want kids as you were growing up?
Oddly,
Think
yeah.
about that?
I had a sense of it in high school, and then the landmark moment for me was my first year in college at community college. I was in a speech type of class, and the teacher always wanted everybody to be more out of their shell. It was in the morning, so she would always, right before slides hit, would have like a icebreaker question, and it's always variable, and it was kind of fun, and everybody had to stand up and say just at least a little bit, just kind of break the ice of public speaking itself, which I think is a cool tool. But
for sure,
besides that, one of the days the question came up, if you could go forward or back in time, which would you choose and what would you do? And my head went, well, definitely not back in time, because I don't want to change anything. I just don't want to fuck with that, and fairly happy, and I don't want to change anything about me, because then I want to be me. So I was like, okay, then future's the only possibility. What would you do in the future? And I was never one to like have good answers to questions right on the spot. I'm the type that really marinades on things. But I was like, I have a minute to figure this out. So, and I'm also the type that I want to say something and it's actually means something. I hold a lot of weight to my word. And so I didn't want to just say like, play with a robot or something like that, or fly on a jetpack or whatever that, like just something.
Be my idol.
Yeah. Stuff like that. Right. So I was like, well, what would be actually fun? What would you enjoy doing? I was like, trying to think. And I was like, well, I'd like to play with my kids. And I was
My
like,
heart melted. It was just there.
I was like, okay. Well, what age? And I was like, well, like teenager, they might be a dick. So I probably don't want that.
They're definitely gonna be a dick if they got my genes. Anyway, sorry.
It'd be cool to feed them if they're like a baby, but then they might be crying. How long do I get in this time machine? I can't risk that. So I was like in my head, like older toddler age, like 8, 9, 10, something like that. Let's go. And so that's what I said. And I really meant it. And then like, I had like faint ideas of it in high school, but that was like now looking back like a landmark moment of like, oh, I understood what that means. And it also was like, that's around the time I like really got interested in like self-help books in the community online. And that's really helped and influenced me to this day, you know?
Yeah. I see that in you.
Thank you. And so it just left me with like, okay. And now I really think on it and I have a lot more of a deeper understanding of it. And it's actually a topic I want to write about at some point.
You should. I don't read enough of that.
Something like what's in my head of what I want to write about is something like, well, the idea is to continually progress, is to chase that positive, right? Instead of chasing that negative, which means a lot of different things in different cultures and philosophies and religions.
Very gross oversimplification of it, but that's the
but it
general
works for
principle,
everybody, right? Like for me, I believe heaven and hell is on earth, and chasing that positive is closer to heaven or analogous to it. And so if you can chase that, then that means you discovered something. And then if you discover it just a little bit more, then you would have the ability to teach it. And if you have the ability to, because then you have the ability to show it to somebody, because not everybody understands these things.
Yeah.
And so then you first come to the place of the fool. You can become the hero and slay the dragon. But then if you understand how you slayed it, so in a narrative sense, and bring that back to the community and teach it, then that's what you should do with your kids.
Yeah.
And if you can do that,
preserve the wisdom for generations.
Yeah. And if you can do that for your kids, then why not expand a bit more and make it your life's work or your career or that? And so that's been a big influence on me. Now, like everything I do is for my kids right now. And I think everything I was doing was since I woke up and in a sense of like actually started thinking at a real thinking of like enlightenment thinking in a sense of like around where I was 14, 15, maybe 16. Yeah. That's a longer answer, I think.
Incredible.
Like everything I do is for them, but it's like, why not bring it to everybody? And what's cool is like, I'm an idiot. So what's fun is I'm going to record it now, me being an idiot, and then hopefully show some progression.
Course.
And work towards that positive, and then
it's
the narrative will be redefined and fined down and tuned as well. And so I hope speaking in a year it'll be better. I mean, I'm talking with people is a nice challenge, right? And this is over 20 now, and so just learning the ebbs and
20
flows.
Different people?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, episode 20
okay.
This is past 20 now, but I've had some repeats, so it's murky how many people, but yeah.
It's a marathon, not a sprint, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, life is. We have a short time, but also like if you really bunker down and you can figure out what you want to do if you're lucky at like 16 and can bunker down, and if you do that for a decade, you're 26 when some people are just waking up and figuring it out, and you've made it is kind of the idea.
Well,
that's a longer answer to your question than probably needed, but
it's a thorough answer, and I appreciate that over the simple yes or no for sure. But what about when you think there's the illusion of knowing what you want, and maybe that's what you saw in yourself. You understood yourself at 16, say, and maybe at your age right now, you realize that you don't really like what you see in yourself. What if you're maybe like 40 when that realization hits you?
That I don't like what I've turned into? Is that what's the question?
That you didn't actually know like what you wanted. There was like an illusion that you have created for yourself of like what you think you wanted out of life, and maybe
Yeah.
maybe that changed
Yeah.
for you.
I definitely don't know what I want right now. I have a rough idea.
Okay.
I know I want legacy, but
It's
that
good.
means
You won't pigeonhole yourself.
yeah. It means that so many different things. Like I'm constantly chiseling out this idea of what I want in the future. I have a rough idea.
Mm-hmm.
I have multiple different places I want to end up, which can be destabilizing in the sense that it can fragment you, but also it doesn't narrow you, and it's not rigid, if that makes sense. But there's what first popped in my mind when you said that was the word instinct, and there's a little bit to what I do. It's like this, what I'm doing right now does not make sense. And nobody watches this. I've spent a lot of money, like this is quality equipment. I've spent a lot of money on it. And
I'm going to be advertising this to all of my friends.
that's
Please.
fine. I appreciate that, like it doesn't make sense. I'm in the hole. I'm not in debt, but I'm in the hole in the sense that money was spent and this is not producing anything.
Right.
But also there's a cool ritual to it. We're setting it up, but then also we're locked in, and everything like that. And so I love just talking to people. I don't put an emphasis as a goal on the money, but if it makes money at some point, would be nice.
It's a nice
with
byproduct,
it's very feasible with ad revenue towards that. So it's a very helpful thing to think, what would I do if money wasn't an object, and then do that and do it in a flavor of hopefully it produces one day. And so hopefully this produces one day, and I really like it because it pushes me out of my comfort zone. Like a lot of other things I do of having to meet people. I mean, I want to have at least one a week, if not 2 or 3. And so I have to find people because not everybody can be a repeat, and it's not good to have repeats because then, like, I had a friend on at least 3 times, maybe 4 times, and then I realized, oh, I'm getting soft in the sense I'm getting in a routine. Like it's easy to talk to, especially him, because he's one of the types, he'll say a word and he'll speak for a minute or 10 minutes, right? So it's very easy as on me. When there's other conversations I've had where it's like I'm really steering the conversation, or I'm the main momentum behind what we're talking about.
Do you prefer those conversations?
No. These are the type I prefer. Well, that one, it's like almost pulling teeth of like trying to find things that the person can talk about.
Yeah,
and
that's a good way to put it.
Some people just don't have opinions on things, which I appreciate, because there's not that know-it-all or that I don't know nothing about this, but I'm going to give my opinion anyways.
The bullshitter,
yeah. But then there's also like, some people just don't think deeply about life and are happy, and that's fine too. There's just different people. But
it's okay to be wrong.
Yeah.
Screw you guys.
But it's also like, you obviously think at least a little bit deep about life, if not a good bit.
I like to think I'm very smart.
Not even smart. It's not even like intelligence. It's like, some people think themselves ragged.
Yes.
But then others can do it and get somewhere, and it feels good. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it's the difference between thinking about things that you actually have control over versus, worrying about things that you don't.
Yeah. I think worry is the key word in there.
Yeah.
Instead
Anxiety.
of thinking, right? Yeah. Instead of just like, because to me, I'm a big systems guy. I have a systems bone in my body of like, I like connecting things that can be connected, and trying to say, okay, this piece is here and that's connected to this, and that's what results in that.
Yeah.
Is what I like to try to figure out. That's where sometimes I'll bring up like spectrums because of like traditional values and now contemporary values, especially in the West, where things are kind of a little new agey, so to speak, right? Different things like that. There's a sliding scale to things.
Yeah. Yeah. Like an abacus.
Abacus?
Like an abacus. You know what an abacus is? It's like the old Greek measuring tool that usually.
Is that the
for
old
kids.
calculators?
Yeah, with the rod, and then they have the beads on the rod, and you move
Yeah.
the beads around. It's not a, it's not an applicable. It's not the same thing as a spectrum, but I like abacus, so
Yeah.
I like it. But yeah, no, I see what you're.
Why don't you
I see
think
what you're
kids are a good thing?
What?
Why don't you
I
think
didn't
kids
say
are
that.
a good thing for your future?
Well,
Is that more accurate?
I'll say I don't see the benefit yet, like you do. I'm not.
Go on.
I've,
And I don't want to shame
You're
you.
like, oh, this guy is fucking okay, guy. Okay. I'm just saying, for me, at the point that I am in life right now, because I can only think about it in the context of my identity right now. I don't know who I'm gonna be in 10 years or 5 years. I'm certainly not having kids like until at least I'm 25, maybe even 30. I'll have kids late if I do. But I have some questions about myself that deserve to be answered before I'm allowed to teach anyone anything about life. You know, first of all, I don't think I'd be a good parent where I am right now.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, some people think having kids is really. There are some people who are in bad relationships who think that having kids is going to fix their relationship. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I know. Well, in a slightly different context, I know people that are. No, I don't know if this is a quite same comparison. Never mind.
Well,
Sorry.
No, you're fine. I'm sure the spirit of what you were thinking is there.
I think what I was getting at is people have things in the wrong order.
Yeah.
I think that's what you're getting at.
Yeah.
Is like some people are going to step 3 when step 1 wasn't even done.
Yeah.
And I've done that myself a little bit, but then had to retract a bit where you learn things about a person you're dating and you're like a little bit deep into a relationship and you're like, oh shit, this is not.
This is a red flag I should have seen, before maybe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because for me, I don't know. I think I line up a bit more with traditional stuff, but I think it's because it's been tested in history. Like you're saying, almost like with some national cultures, so to speak, have been tested through history, and the American identity is pretty new. But in a completely different sense, what it means to like date somebody respectfully, because that then leads into kids, is really flipped on its head in certain senses right now, especially in our Western culture.
Yeah. And I think there are some cultures like you're making me think of Japan, where I think they're just not having kids because I think that it's because like the paradigm has changed there, where like getting married and having kids just doesn't make sense anymore, or make as much sense, or it's not really feasible with the culture or the economy that they might have. But I think I think I like what you said about putting things out of order, because I do think I have to stop myself every time I think about that kind of future where I'm making like this image of where I'm going to be in a certain amount of time, and I'm going to have this kid, this is what I'm going to do. Well, I'm putting the cart before the horse, and that's what I say in my head, like, don't you think you should refocus your priorities a little bit? And yeah, go on ahead.
A little bit. To me, it's more thinking about the cart and then rigging up the horse to be prepared for the cart. Does that make sense? I can expand on that.
Yeah, please do.
It's the cart is the kids.
Okay.
It's thinking about the kids, but that's something we're graced with the ability to think. And so thinking about it is not the same as putting any action into the world.
Yes.
And so you can think about where the cart is, where it should be, and what it's filled with, while not even touching the cart at all, and therefore not having it even hitched or even maybe existent. Maybe you haven't even gotten your cart, right? But then you can still think, to me, it's maybe like you're the horse in the sense of, but this needs to be set first. Like in order to pull the cart, we need a horse.
Mm-hmm.
We need a strong horse as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And so, yeah, like right now I would be not good with kids, but that's just understanding to fix the horse. But then in my head, I'm like, this horse is going to pull a cart at some point.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I think that brings up a question for me, because there are some people who I know are fantastic people, but would not make very good parents.
Like ever? Are you saying?
Maybe like ever.
Or right now?
Well, there are some people like the way that what I'm getting from what you're saying is that you're thinking about conditioning yourself for a future as a parent, right?
Yeah.
And there are some people that's not, some people like me, where that's not even like a factor for them until like they hit 35 and they realize they won't be able to have kids in 5 years, and shit, now I'm rushing to get married and have a kid. You know, what do you think about that? Like those people who don't really consider this part of the natural human condition until maybe they're worried that it's too late.
Yeah. It's especially hard for women.
Yeah.
It's especially hard. I think like on some estimates past 30, it's sub 25% chance, depending on, you know, your genetic makeup and predispositions and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. It's a quarter chance. I think past 30 is what I've heard. I haven't looked at actual studies, but that's what I've heard. But once you get past that point, it's just subsequently harder every single day. That's why they call it the clock or the wall. Mm-hmm. I think one of the greatest superpowers is the ability to have kids. And recently I recognized this where two different occasions with both my grandmas. One was on my mom's side. This was a year or two ago. I think it was the 4th or something like that. And we had all the family there. On that side of the family, my grandfather on that side committed suicide. I think when my mom was around like 1, 2, 3, or 4, very young. Okay. So he was never around. So it was all her. And they had some hardships and stuff like that. But so it was all her. And then I was looking at the deck, and it was all her 3 girls. So my 2 aunts and my mom and their husbands, and then all of their kids that they made, and all of, what was it? Her daughters, all of the kids her daughters have made, and then, which is me, and then I plan on having kids and stuff like that. So at some point, all the kids I would make, but on that deck was double digits people, and they were all congregated in that place all because of that one woman. It was something I like just put together in that instant. I was like, whoa, like that's crazy, right? Because while like she needed somebody else to make those kids, he checked out real quick, and it was still her. And now you have that. And then on the second occasion was when my grandfather died a couple of years ago. He was my step grandfather, actually, not blood relation. A few years ago, it was very hard on my grandma because she loved him, but on my dad's side, but like she had her 2 sons and daughter to console her, and then their husbands and wives, and then their kids, like just hierarchically people that resulted from people that you created is what I put together. I've put together now twice now. And it was like you and that one, well, in this case, it's not exactly true, but it works for a lot of people, is like, because he was my stepfather, but you and one other person made some people, at least one person. You could octomom it with 8 people if you wanted to, but at least one. And then even if that one person, your husband, dies off, that person you made can make, if you just go by the rule of 2, the 2 people you make can make 4. And then by that time, as long as there's no tragedy in the family, you could have, what is that? 4, 7, you would have 6 people there to console you for one death, is how I thought, like just numbers wise. But then also
because you're a numbers guy,
but like,
right?
I'm a big numbers guy, but because I think the numbers influences the feelings, because you have the death of one person, which is a lot of grief, but then you have the love of 6 people there.
You're making me see something that I wasn't prepared to see today. I have divorced parents, and I do not have any family in the United States, so that might be a part of that influenced my feelings about having my own family.
Yeah.
That's interesting. No, I see that. I see that today with some of my friends. I always forget to mention the divorce thing because I feel like it's the dominant paradigm now. When I talk to people, it's like, or at least when I was growing up, it's like most people I would talk to, it was like, oh, your parents are divorced? Yeah, mine too. You know, that was just like the base, the standard.
Well, isn't the divorce rate in the U.S. over 50%?
Something like that. I
think.
I don't know how it changed, but that's the number that I've been hearing since I was young. But yes.
So it's the majority in that case.
Yeah.
You know?
And I see exactly what you're talking about in the families and my friends' families who do not have divorced parents, or they have very big families. And my mom makes the same point as well. I think I personally grew up in a very conscientious household because I grew up with my mom and we were basically alone. Like, we were on our own for most of my growing life. So I learned to handle things on my own, and unfortunately I conflated that with not accepting help as I was growing up as well. And so I think that might be part of the reason why I feel differently from you, is because in my childhood, as I was growing up, I'm very self-reliant and like fiercely independent. So I think of these things as like, well, what benefit is of it? You know, what benefit is it to me having kids or getting married and all that stuff? It's a very stubborn way of thinking, but I guess it's the way that I grew up.
But then it's a huge benefit if you think about it, because even if you don't have a spouse that dies, you have illness, and I mean, it's a given in life, the tragedy of life. Mm-hmm. But then there's our society on top of it that's right now corroding, which is a different conversation in itself. Yes. But we can do our best to try to make our society help everybody and do its thing. But then at the same time, life still has its tragedies of natural disasters and disease and different things like that, that just cancer, different things like that are a lot harder to numb was the word that came to mind, but root out of life. They're almost a part of it, right? Where we're trying to fix cancer, we're trying to fix diseases, but it seems like more come up even, and we still have earthquakes and tsunamis and volcanoes and disasters like that
take people away.
Yeah. And then tragedy within families themselves of infidelity and different things like that, right? Yes. So it's not just death, I guess, that pads you from of having kids there to console with, but also just the tragedy of life itself. So, and selfishly, you're like, those kids are going to love me at that day, right? But it's kind of I don't know.
Well, it's more selfishly, I can handle myself. I can figure out a way to deal with all of these horrible tragedies of the human condition by myself.
Oh, that reminds me. Oh, I love it when ideas pop in my brain. I'm not much of a narrative reader, but I'm breaking into one right now.
Me as well.
What was this line? I read it last night. It was really interesting. It was, I could go grab it, but the spirit of it was, it was a quick little blurb, and it really was kind of a blind side of what he was talking about. But he's talking about, the part in the chapters about the upper class and stuff like that. And it was like 4 sentences. And all it was about was the older men. The thing that snatches them up in this narrative is younger women that want to get their hands on the wealth or even the status that can promote to, because it was in like a Hollywood-esque setting where they hope to get what was he saying? They hope to get picked up by a producer, if not find a man that they can make into a producer to then promote them. Was the whole like to move up the hierarchy just through relationships.
Yes.
And that's to the detriment of the men, where they have divorces that take 50%, if not more, of their wealth and stuff like that. But then within this line, the second one was something with the women that have all the wealth, but were chose to be individuals, think that that wealth will be there to console them, was the idea. And it was interesting because he didn't apply that to men, where it was a sense of what men have to worry about is it being stolen by other greedy women. And then for the women in that place, what he connected it to was they're alone. They don't really have men barking up their tree to steal it from them, but their diamonds won't be there to help wipe their tears when tragedy's at the door.
I see.
For these like two people that are either divorced or on their own, but then still have riches or status or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting point. I can read you the actual line maybe after this.
That is an interesting point, and I'd like to think more about that. I think that the thing that comes to my mind when we talk about stuff like that is money and wealth represents freedom, and that's generally the way it seems to be. Money equals freedom, especially today, and but there's the caveat of like money and wealth doesn't really mean anything at the end of the day.
Hello? Hello? What's up? Hey, Logan. Good. How are you doing?
Anyway,
You're saying
it's the freedom that they're looking for, I think, and whatever that freedom means, I think maybe it's like conflated to wealth alone, but I think they're looking for freedom and expecting that to wipe their tears. Then,
but it doesn't seem like it. While they might have you guys can go downstairs. It's no worry. You guys are good.
On ahead.
How was the drive? Long? You got here?
It's hotter than hell outside right now.
Barely. What I was thinking of was I've been really interested in male-female relationships or relationships in general. And so I think that like connects to a broader thing of what I've been trying to figure out or undress or whatever.
Do you mean romantic relationships or just relationships?
Well, I think in general, like male-female interactions,
Okay.
I think that bleeds into romantic relationships, but then just like business, because it's relatively recent within Western society to allow women in the workforce. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but like there's interesting dynamics that are at play, right? Because the two are, I mean, there's people that are away from that, like gay people and stuff like that, but then the majority of people are still attracted to the opposite sex, and now that's in business settings, and it's really interesting in general. And also just the ability for a woman to move within the market is a lot more free as well. And so what does that mean? Because she doesn't necessarily have to rely on a man. She can find those riches and go into old age very financially free. And is that satiating for her spirit? I think it does depend on the individual, but I think also in general, there's an idea you can get for most women would either be very happy in that or unhappy in that, right? So we can try to get a majority vote on that. That's things I've been thinking about. There's a line that comes to mind of the men figure out how to be successful and attain their success. And then I'm not saying I believe in this line, but the men attain success and the women wait at the end to fuck the winners is the idea.
Okay.
And it's that what that blurb was about of like trying to for lack of a better term, leechy women that want to get a hold of that inheritance or of that status that comes with men that have made it. And you don't really see that in men, to my knowledge, that are looking for, there's some like sugar mamas, so to speak, and but there's a lot more sugar daddies, right?
Yeah.
Which is interesting. and people would say that's how society's set up, but I think there's more of like a biological thing to it as well.
I think there is. Well, if we're still talking about me having kids, I at the end of the day, money is not what I want. It's the freedom that the money represents.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
to get away from that, more what you're talking about, I think it's. Let me see. I had a point, and then I quickly forgot it. Oh, you do see the male equivalent, but it's not the same. I feel like there is a biological thing to it, and there's like an anthropological thing where I feel, and this is like a really gross simplification.
Okay.
But I feel like men generally desire less in order to be happy than women do.
In a relationship?
I think in general. I think because you find more men who are willing to live minimalistic lifestyles than women. And I feel like the male equivalent of those women, like leechy women, so to speak, who are going after the wealthy men, is like men who essentially, I mean, I'm pulling this out of the air, but like men who want women to basically replace their mothers and take care of them, not necessarily with like financially, but also emotionally,
To baby them.
yeah, to baby them.
Yeah.
I feel like that might be the male equivalent.
Yeah. And which is separate from finances entirely. It's more on an emotional basis, right?
Yeah.
That's interesting you went that way. I didn't think you would say that.
What
which
were
is
you
fine.
expecting me to say?
I don't know, like normal arguments you hear from people, but
Oh.
just like in general of like, I don't know.
Oh, like the contrarian view of like, well, men do this and
women can do this as well.
Which, I mean, that it would be true, but I think that's putting a Band-Aid over the issue, because that's not really the problem. It's a symptom of the problem.
Yeah. And it's also like, there's also, like MGTOW.
Oh, that I haven't heard
men
that.
going their own way, which is like, if we're fed up, it seems like we'll form a group of men that are just like, no more women.
Yeah.
But then you don't really have the MGTOW of women.
Because you know why? The
Why?
silent treatment only works for women.
That's a great point, right?
Yeah.
It actually, that's like, there's interesting dynamics between these things, right? Like, we'll just hike off into the woods and be in our cabin and call it, but then that's not the same for women. It's a little bit different. And there's like more nuance and individuals and different things like that, but we're talking just in general,
Yeah.
That's something I've been really trying to puzzle out lately. I think like the last many months I've been like on a personal level, but then also like just a societal level. I think like what it means for most people. Like, what recommendations would you give to people of how to sort their lives romantically and within the workplace and stuff like that?
Are you asking me? Or
that's where my head's been. If you have thoughts on that, I'd love to hear.
Oh, I can't imagine that I'm any further on figuring out the answer to that than you are. But and just like I'd have to marinate on that a little while, because there's so many variables in that. But I'm not exactly the person to ask for relationship advice. I'm not.
No, you're good. And
I'm not really in there that much. It's not a concern.
Did you come from more of a traditional, well, I guess your parents divorced, but were there more traditional values instilled onto you, or?
Yeah, I'd say so. My dad always hammered home in my head loyalty. Like, men want an honest, loyal woman, and those are obviously what he wants, and those are projected onto me, of course, because I'm his daughter. But I think my mom really hammered home into my head, like, you have to have self-respect and kind of have like a stick your nose up sort of attitude, which I think is the dominant way that Iranian women raise their daughters. It's a very stuck up kind of nature, which sounds a little strange, but I mean, you have to understand that they grew up in a culture that doesn't respect them and is
Yeah.
it's very hard for them. So they have to be really like fiercely independent and strong-willed in that way. But
I think that's a good thing.
I think it is. I don't know what it is. It is a good thing, but the thing is, a lot of them, especially when they're young girls, which is part of the reason why I never really had Iranian friends growing up. Young girls would conflate that stuck-up nature with just being bullies. So, and that is also something that sticks around as they age, because Iran Persians have a very gossipy kind of culture. They're very mouthy, but
Men and women, or more women in Persian culture?
it's both men and women. It's more women, but with men, it's like you read between the lines.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
a very boastful culture. So they're very concerned with the way they look outwardly, both men and women. But the women are probably more likely to be talking about it. With the men, it's just like a common understanding that they have with each other, I think.
Yeah.
Sorry, can you ask me the question one more time? Oh, traditional values.
I think why I said that's good is to me, another ability I think women have with childbirth is you guys have the ability to be, the phrase that sticks in my mind is the great sorters. You get to sort through everybody. Because not only do you get to teach your children, but also you get to sort who helped you create them. And that's where I said that I think that's good, is because you get to weed out the weak men and the unfaithful or unloyal and different things like that, right? Because they're not going to, if they're not going to stick around for that, then they're not going to stick around for anything else.
Yeah.
Right.
Women
And I think
get
that's
to
a
be
good
lot more
thing.
choosy.
Yeah. I think obviously you can see it through a lot of statistics and stuff like that. Women are more choosy, but I think that's a good mechanism.
I agree, because there's so much more risk for us.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Tons.
Compared to men. We invest a lot more in relationships as a whole than I think men do. And I hope that doesn't sound too inflammatory, but
No,
that's
like
what,
emotionally,
that's what I
and
think.
then also you carry the burden of birth and everything like that.
Yeah, and you know, the man is traditionally supposed to be the rock and the support. I mean, it's variable, but generally that's what women would look for, I think.
Do you agree with those ideas? Because that's more traditional ideals.
I know it's what I want.
Yeah.
I know I want someone who can handle things when it is necessary for them to, you know. I don't know how else to put it other than that, but I need someone who won't crumble before me.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and that could mean something different for many women, I think, as well, and women who have different tolerances as well, because I like to think that I can handle myself pretty well and handle things pretty well, which automatically puts my standards really high.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is then the difficult part of being too choosy. When can
finding
you decide?
somebody.
Yeah. Like, when can you take liberties? Yeah, but you asked about
I keep interrupting you, but what comes to mind is there's this, because I've been like listening to a lot of people, and these are all just perspectives. They're not necessarily my own personal views on things, but what was a interesting triangle somebody brought up on one of the videos I was watching was, if you picture like a triangle, the top little piece is the top 1% of men, and then there's a center section that's 100% women, and then the bottom is 99% of men. And the idea is the 99% are looking at the top. They want to be those men, but then also they want all women.
Yeah.
And it's a generalization, but in principle, it makes sense. And then there's a lot of women trying to get to that top 1%, right? Have high standards and be those sorters for the very few that have actually put in the work to be those strong men, right? And then you have that top 1% that has such a abundance to choose from, right?
What do you think makes that top 1%? What do you think?
Like makes the man?
Yeah.
It's
What
a
are the
good question.
qualities?
Oh, there's the trifecta. What is it? It's like games, physically strong, having game, which I think is better translated to
It's
having
very
charisma.
vague. Yeah.
I think being charismatic, not just with women, being able to linguistically talk with them and set them up for a date and be interesting to talk to on a date. But then also have the power to negotiate business deals and different things like that. That'll also help you in your career. I think having charisma is part of it. The second is being physically strong. There's what am I trying to find? There's not women don't want exactly the bodybuilder type, but there's a high percentage of women that want what a lot of guys refer to as the like swimmer's build. Like you're not super huge, but you're nice and lean. You have muscle mass onto you. You're a strong guy. You're not overly big. Some women like that, but not all, right? So, but to be charismatic, to be strong. And then what was the third one? To have money. Yeah. To be financially sound.
Security.
Yeah. To have that free, which can be analogous to freedom, right? To have that ability to do things. There's an interesting line of like, women don't care how much money you have as long as there's enough to be spent on them. Whether like they don't care as long as the dinner date bill is paid,
Pretty
right?
much,
Even
yeah.
if maybe that's your last $20.
Yeah.
But as long as it's an interesting idea where like you don't need to be a millionaire, you just have to have enough money.
For her.
Yeah. Yeah. But those three things are commonly referred to. And I think that sums it up for the most part. You know, I think you get into a territory of like what the woman wants personally, and that's where you get some nice individual variation. You know,
Lots
different
of nuance there.
yeah, there's a lot of those are like I think the generalities you can kind of strike up.
And that's true across cultures, I think. Generally, for the most part, I notice like physical attractiveness is whittled down to fitness and not like what you're born with.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is an idea that I've really been struggling with for my life, is trying to get over that physical attractiveness hurdle, because I notice that other people, and even in myself, it's scary when you notice that you're treating someone differently because you find them more attractive. And it's something, and I've seen that in myself at
Do you have
times.
an example
Like
you can give?
like maybe you change just the tone of your voice when you're talking to someone physically attractive, like someone you perceive to be attractive.
Is that a bad thing?
No, but it's I wouldn't necessarily say that it's a bad thing, but it's it makes me uncomfortable that I can, because it means a lot at the end of the day.
What does?
Those little things that if you treat people differently, like those little things add up, you know? And I don't really know how they add up. I don't know how it works, but like it doesn't feel good when someone treats you differently, more poorly.
Yeah.
If they maybe think you're ugly. Yeah.
Well, some the contrarian point on that would be we want to treat the people that have gone out there and changed themselves in a positive manner and treat them differently.
Oh, yes.
And treat them in a positive light, right?
Of course.
And so when your tone switches to somebody that has gained a better physique, that means they've put a lot of discipline and time into the gym. If you meet somebody that's a little more wealthy, they've figured out their finances and their own business well. If you meet somebody that is linguistically very well and capable, that means, I mean, there's some people that are born into some of these things, but in general, you meet somebody like that, they worked on it. They practiced how they talk to people. They worked out, maybe they had a stutter or different things like that, right? And so to me, I understand what you're saying where there's differential treatment, but I think like on a micro scale, that's fine. Everybody, it's easy to say, should have rights and all that sense and be treated with respect. But I think a tone shift isn't that big of a deal.
No, it's a small and simple example, but I think I should clarify that I people who work on themselves, like you can have the same person and there is like the base person, and then you could have someone who's puts in the work to make themselves better, and people find that attractive, and they see that. That's not necessarily what I'm talking about. I think I am talking a little bit more about physical, like initial, like it's just, for me, it's like I get scared because I feel like it reflects poorly on me if I'm treating someone different, based on the way they look or my expectations of them based on something superficial like that. I feel like I look inward and I think, oh, that's kind of a selfish move, because I see it as, oh, I'm being nice to this person just because I think it'll benefit me in some way. And that's exactly what I want to avoid. Like 100% of the time is that selfishness, I think. I obviously haven't put in a lot of thought into it, but it's something that I've noticed.
That's okay.
Recently.
We'll do it now.
Oh, okay. We can do that.
Well,
how much time you got?
What came to mind for me with that is there's times, especially if you're trying to level yourself up, so to speak, that there's a outgrowing of some friends, right? And what that is analogous to is determining whether relationships have made and are reassessing, or relationships you're currently making now are liabilities or assets. And if you're the type of person that is trying to get better, you need as many assets as you can in your life.
Yeah.
And randomly, I think this was yesterday on social media, I saw just a very quick clip of Snoop Dogg, and he was like, if you're here and you're with your friends here and you're getting to here, the only way to get back to them is to go down.
Yeah.
And the only way for them to get up to you is for them to decide themselves to come up to you. But if you go down, then you're going down, right?
Yeah. And you can't necessarily pull them up along with you. That's their choice.
You can try, but it usually doesn't work like that. There's that, to circle back a bit, you shed that skin, right? As you will as a snake, as you let those things die.
Yeah.
And it's in the, with the goal above you to be better, and you need things around you that are assets.
Yeah.
And so if you see somebody that has performed in something and achieved, then they are more likely an asset, and should be, in a sense, not maybe preferential is a bad word, but like they should be reaping the seeds that they've sown, right?
Yeah.
If they're better linguistically, then they should have more friends, right?
Yeah.
They're easier to be around, they're funner to talk to, different things like that.
That makes sense. That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are a lot of variables that I feel like I haven't taken into account yet.
Yeah.
But what you're saying makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's, I say this, and I think it should be said that there's a window of redemption for people. I believe in that heavily. But that means that the person, I think there still needs to be some initiative taken on the person to then seek that redemption, to quit that bad habit and to become an asset to those around them, right?
I see. Do you have specific people in mind when you say that?
Not directly. I'm trying to think if I can come up with anybody. I think, like, just in general, I mean, when I started out in community college and I got interested in the self-help community, there's figures online that continue to run their brand, so to speak, but I, in a way, outgrew them. Personally, that's how it felt, whether I just heard enough of their content and they were just rehashing stuff, and there was no use listening to that because it was just echoes now. And so they weren't leveling up their script, which if they can do whatever they want. If they don't need to, they don't need to, right? But then I found other things. And then again, I also wanted more information on different subjects. Like, I subscribed on my YouTube to many different people that produce like relationship content and different things like that, because within the last few months, that's where my interest was. And now lately I've seen myself unsubscribing to some of those just because that was a season, so to speak, and they're more of a liability because they take up my time than an asset because I learned from them.
Yes.
right? So things come in waves as well, where maybe, I don't know, your friend right now is not interesting to talk to, but maybe they're in sales, and in a few years you want to rehire them because they could be an asset now in your company, if to put some story together, so things can come and go, but that means that friend leveled up who they were. They didn't maybe level up linguistically and were more interesting to talk to, but they did level up career wise to where they're more of an asset in the job market, right? So there's a lot of nuance within that, right?
But it is intuitive. I think it is intuitive because it's easy to see the benefit of having certain friends over others.
Yeah.
But then there's the tricky part then of when do you know you need to let go of an old life?
Yeah.
I don't, and I could not speak on that at all.
Well, like that's where I think I've said this earlier. There's a certain degree to what I try to do that's just instinctual. I try to do what feels good, what I find meaning in. I read this book where the author called it the muse, where you try to find that it's what some people would connect to God or the great divine or the universe. There's many different names for it, right? But chasing that. And then here's a friend that, no names, but hadn't seen them for months, and we were really good friends. And then we get back and start hanging out, and the issues, with friends, you discuss issues, right?
Yes.
And the issues I brought to the table were totally different than what they were bringing. For me, it's like issues with how do I edit this? What is the correct equipment to buy? Like growing things, making things better. How is my writing? Are these sentences lining up? Is this a coherent point that I'm trying to put together? How can I, in a couple of years, quit my 9-to-5 job and figure out how to make money my own way that feels good to me? Like those are my issues right now. And that's what I was wanting to come to the table with. And the issues they came to the table with was, this isn't exactly, but it's the spirit of it is like, this girl's boyfriend slept with this guy. These two friends aren't talking anymore, at least for now, in a month they'll be friends again.
Yeah.
It's a lot more social, a lot more, a lot more feelings based, so to speak. And I don't harp on anybody like that, but that's just not where I'm at. That's not what I'm trying to, I'll still listen and give advice. And to a certain extent, that's fine. Like figure out the relationships around you with some of those friends,
There's
but
a
also
spot for that,
that's not where I'm at, So that's like where I want all my friends to be assets, right?
Or is it you want them all to be on the same page as you are?
Well, I don't want everybody to have my same beliefs, because I have friends that I like to challenge me because it puts me in my place, but they're challenging me to be better and not just giving me airy-fairy problems that aren't problems.
So not to change your beliefs or to have the same beliefs as you, but the same priorities?
Yeah. Same interests or values or even just like, I don't know how to say this.
Say it the best way you can.
Like, I don't care necessarily about people's feelings. I mean, I do.
Great start.
I really do, especially like friends I care about. And what am I trying to get at? I care about them when the people care about them, when people actually think deeply. Like I have friends that actually are really trying to work out things right now, things from their past that they dealt with that are still influencing them now. And I'm so here for that. Like I have a scarcity abundance idea of like how that influences how you interact with the world. And I just said that, and I didn't even mean it with any power by it to a friend. And they were like, oh, that scarcity idea, I'm completely connecting to how now I'm out of it, but I was in a few years bouts of having eating disorders, and that's influenced me and scared. So like and that's in a sense helped her a little bit of like understanding how she views the world, which is a bit scarce right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm here for that entirely, of people that are genuinely trying to figure it out. But then there's also people that bring up issues just to gossip, like we were talking about.
Some people just like to hear themselves talk.
That too. I feel like I've been talking a little too much right now.
No, not at all. It's valuable. It's not just talk, it's thought. But yeah, it's a lot. my brain is going too fast, and I can't exactly articulate my thoughts clearly, but I'll try.
Just pick one.
Yeah. Well,
I see you as somebody that's trying to get better. What has that been like for you? Because like you work out like we met climbing, but you also, I think, work out, right? And you're very well educated, and while you don't have a spiritual definition, you care about what that means to you yourself, your own spirit. You have divorced parents, but you still care about family in a certain sense. Like, you put at least some thought into things. So what has that been like for you?
I put my value as a person. I put all my value in the things that I can do and everything that I can bring to the table. Not necessarily what I think about or what I feel about. Sometimes what I think about. I really, really subscribe to the idea of be better than you were yesterday. That's a big deal for me.
Yeah. One of my favorite fitness guys, there's many out there, but Pat Mack, he has the idea of, what if somebody cloned you today or yesterday, and you had to fight them today? Would you win?
That's another good way
like,
of putting it.
You have your own assassin out for you. Would you be able to stand up against you yesterday?
That's an idea that's really important to me, but it's also something that is I'm finding more difficult to. It's not sustainable. It's not always sustainable. It's a good thing to practice in moderation. That's what I've learned at the point that I'm at right now. Because if you're constantly, on the grind or trying to be better and better than you were the day before, and you'll start setting unrealistic expectations for yourself, because you see the trajectory of where you're going one day, and then the next day you're not really going to be going at the same momentum, not always, but you'll still be setting the same expectations for yourself the next day. When you don't meet expectations, you're going to feel like shit, complete and utter shit, and that is just, it'll kill all the momentum. So I think that it is important to have those ideals, but practice them in moderation, and realize that sometimes you just need to let go of control. In my public speaking class, I had this commemorative speech, and I thought up this really cute analogy that I really liked, and it was about foregoing control and being okay. Bosh, do you ever worry about falling through the floor?
No.
At any given time? Well, neither is the water bug, say. Like, when you look at a water bug and really watch it go, it's not really freaking out. It's not flapping its limbs around wildly and worrying about falling through the floor. It's trusting the water tension to hold it up, because it's not even a factor. When you're thinking outside of yourself too much, and when you're thinking too forward, and you're freaking out about things that haven't happened yet, or thinking of tasks that you haven't failed to complete yet, you could drown. I don't really know how else to put it other than that, but I kind of like to think of it that way. That was a very long and roundabout
good.
answer to your question.
I've done
but
that as well this session. So
I it's the best way that I can put it is that I really try to learn new skills and progress and feel better about myself every day. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's those things that are really going to make me happy. They're just going to make me a more competent person. I'm worried that in maybe 20 years, if I do have a perfect life, a perfect family, and a perfect whatever, everything I've built is perfect, maybe I still won't be happy. And that's when I have to introduce the idea that you can't control everything. And by trying to be better every day, you're kind of developing like control issues for yourself. So that's the way I've been thinking about it lately.
do you know the philosophy Stoicism? Okay. You're speaking like a Stoic right now.
Really?
Yeah.
Fuck.
No, that's good.
Oh, okay.
No, that's not a bad thing.
Okay.
One of the main tenets in Stoicism
So
is
the
you can
labels.
only control things within yourself. You can't control outside of it.
Mm-hmm.
You can control how you react to things, but not what things will come to you.
Mm-hmm.
And you said that earlier as well, that I can only control what I do, right?
Mm-hmm.
That among many thoughts came to mind. I don't know if I think maybe it comes with being very involved with something with a lot of time, but I think there's having unrealistic expectations. But the guy I was talking to earlier today, I realized this. I think I've been consistently lifting weights for almost a decade now. I think I need to do the math on it when I'm not thinking about the podcast and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But it's been a while. I've been going at it for a while. My dad got me into it when I was in middle school, which is 13 at the earliest, maybe 14, 15. So maybe I'm at 8 or 9 years in,
Mm-hmm.
'cause I'm up 22. And right now I just have maintenance and progress days.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit different, I think, and right now I'm doing crazy stuff with weights. I didn't realize they were crazy until I took a friend along lifting with me, and they were like,
Jaw was on the floor.
"What the fuck
like,
are you
dude,
doing,
what the
dude?"
hell? Crazy in what way, though? What is it that you're doing?
I like a lot of kettlebell stuff,
Oh.
and then I'm trying to perfect my muscle up, and then climbing goals, and weight training and climbing goals.
Yeah.
Which you're supposed to do a lot of body weight stuff for climbing, but I want to maintain the strength gains I've had through weight training.
Yeah. Have you seen the size of like some of the best climbers we have? Like Alex.
Tiny.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not trying to go for that.
Yeah.
I'm not huge, but
Well,
climbers build wise, I'm not small.
Correct. But you are tall. You're long.
I am long. I'm
Which
6
helps
feet.
a lot.
Yeah. Well, sometimes in those tight caves, are sometimes hard on me.
It's not always ergonomically friendly. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's for sure. On the slab, you excel.
That's true. Or like side squatting a 70-pound kettlebell rocked has been a goal of mine that I've been trying to do.
Wow.
And I'm doing that right now for reps. I'm trying to do a double racked with 270s. I'm at 260s right now.
Mm-hmm.
Different things like that, muscle ups. But what I'm getting at is there's many days I go in, I'm like, because I track all my numbers, I'm like, okay, I did 3 sets of 8 reps with this weight. Let's just do that again on my bad days.
Okay.
And so if I can do it last week on a good day, hit those numbers, and I can do it this week on a bad day, hit those numbers, then the next week, if I'm feeling good, I can push those numbers. And so if it's a bad week and I just need to maintain, it's a maintenance day. That's what I say is like, just do the bare minimum, which if your bare minimum is a lot of things, then you're doing good. And then if you can push it on a progress day, increase those sets, reps, or weights, just like you do. That's what came to mind. And then that idea of curbing expectations that you brought up, to me, it's a word I've been trying to figure out. I think I've gotten a little bit closer. I mention it often on the podcast just because it comes up. It was meta strength, but I think the word is closer to something like meta intelligence.
Okay.
And the idea, the meta part is the part I love, which is it's self-referential. And so it's understanding how, and intelligence is knowledge. So it's the understanding of progressing, like I think you like to do and I like to do, is get better with our goals and different things like that. But then the meta part is it's self-referential to understand when you need those either maintenance days or when to back down on something, when you've bit off more than you can chew.
I agree.
So that's what I've learned is people don't build in sustainability enough to their programs. And that's that meta part where it's self-referential so that it is stable, where it's constantly checking in with itself of, can I push it this day, or is it a maintenance day?
Yeah. It might be easier for you since you're more of a numbers guy and you can quantify it better than someone like me who just kind of, I go based on feeling. Like you said, we met at the climbing gym, and I not to toot my own horn, but I think I'm probably like intermediate-ish. I never treated climbing as a sport that I wanted to like get better at, to be the best at, or to be really good at. But I just started doing it because I really thought it was fun. I thought it was really, really fun. And sending a project was one of the best feelings ever. And I loved, like, anytime I could have control over my body and the control when I'm climbing, that was really important to me.
Yeah.
That like high from getting that. But then I started enjoying it less because I would get other people's input, and I let other people's input kind of sort of in a way dictate how much fun I would be having for the rest of the time, because other people would have expectations for me usually. And they give me nicknames and say like, hey, can you show me how to do this? And I like that. It makes me feel proud of myself, but it also makes it less fun for me, because it feels less rewarding, I think, when other people have set expectations for you and what you can do.
What do you mean exactly within climbing?
Like when you get on the wall and everyone's watching you, and sometimes when you get on the wall and it's just like everyone shuts up for a minute, I hate that.
What?
I hate that.
I don't hear it. Do you like climbing with earbuds then?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe that's something.
I mean, maybe that is something. It's not a big deal. I love doing it, and I love all the friends that I've made, and I love interacting with other climbers, especially climbers who are better than me. But it's just like, it's always expectations that seem to put a damper on motivation for me. Because at the same time, like from the other end, I love it when people say that I can't do something, because, spite is the best motivation. It's my favorite thing in the world, is when you do something that you're successful in, something that people say that you cannot do. I love that. So it's this weird duality that I think I'm still kind of figuring out.
I'll tell you can't do sixes more often.
What's that?
I'll tell you can't do V6s more often in the gym to help pry you up there.
Yeah, I'm not that good. Not quite yet. Dude, yeah, 5.
You're there. You're getting there.
I'm getting there.
We're at similar levels.
I would say so. You got the height edge on me a little bit, but I got the weight edge on you.
That's true. I'm fat as fuck.
Yeah, I'm little. I don't have a lot of weight that I need to carry, but yeah, that 5, I'll tell you, that 5 to 6 has been the biggest obstacle for me.
I've been enjoying more 6s in our gym than 5s lately. Like fun on a route. A lot more fun trying 6s
even when you
than
can't
5s.
finish it, huh?
Can't even finish it.
Yeah.
But maybe it's just the enjoyment of the maneuvers or whatever.
It's more stimulating.
It's interesting to me that you didn't directly, but gave a nod that you don't like people putting expectations on you in a sense that it's their fault. And it's interesting to me that you say it like that when you're a big, it's my fault type of person. And what I thought about that as well when you said that was because what you were talking about is how I think of it is finding flow on the wall is where you lose the track of time and you're just one with the wall and in a very very fun sense. I was going to say something else and the word escaped me. Where it's just like you, and if you do like a 3 or 4 that you know you can do, but you really just play with your balance and hand holds and stuff like that. It's like a dance. It almost feels like, right? And you're just one with it and feel really flowy. And for me, I've been on climbs and get really cognizant of my my perception, my blind spots, and that's me trying to look behind me, thinking about the people behind me. And what I'm thinking is like, why are you thinking about them? Focus on the wall. And I what I'm getting at is I put it on me. I'm like, dude, you're in your head now. You're not with the wall. You're not in your body, right? Because I get that too. But I'm saying to me, it's like there's something wrong with me.
You don't buckle under the pressure.
I feel it because then my attention's not on the route I'm doing, especially if it's a hard, engaging route. It's on what it first goes. My attention's on me, what they're looking at me, and then me on the wall instead of me on the wall, which is a lot quicker and uses less mental energy, right? And some routes you need a lot of mental fortitude sometimes to kind of grit through some things, you know?
That's definitely true, and I think that's holding me back.
It holds me back sometimes too, but also it's fun to like cruise up a 4 or a 5 in front of people and they're like,
Whoa,
what? Even though there's now 7, 8, 9 climbers that would blow me out of any of us out of the water, you know?
Either of us, yeah.
But it's also like, I don't know where you were at, where you started, but I was barely like a 3 climber. I had like the muscle there so I could kind of muscle my way up, but I didn't have like the balance or the techniques definitely there. So watching people do 3s was astounding to me. And now watching people do like 6s and 7s is astounding. It's just like a nice little ladder.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I was pretty much the same way when I started climbing. I started climbing like 2 years ago, I think. I had a coworker who really got me into it, and I've stuck with it since. And I think it is really fun to have fun with the lower grades. But I think the difference between the 5s and the 6s is that you're just holding tension a lot more on 6s in my experience. But hang on, I forgot where I was going, what I was gonna say. Oh, yeah, I was, because it reminded me of what we were talking about earlier with having friends that are assets to you, and then there are people who are where they are and they're in their place, but you're not maybe like not on the same page or in the same area as them.
Liabilities.
You could say that.
You don't want to. You
I don't
you
like
feel
that
bad
word.
using that. Yeah.
But yeah, I guess if you focus too much on that, I'm sweating right now.
You're good. It's kind of hot in here.
A little bit, but but I would like I like to be around. I like. Sorry, I'm gonna take a step back here. I enjoy climbing with better people who are better climbers than me more than I enjoy teaching other climbers to climb. Just because of that idea of like I'm getting better and I can see that I'm getting better because I can help other people, and that's fantastic. And that was really rewarding to me at the beginning. But nowadays, it's like the expectations that I was talking about, I get them more from the people who are not at my level more than I get from the people who are above me. And my eyes are more focused on the people who are above me because I'm trying to see what they're doing, and I'm trying to do that.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, those guys aren't quite liabilities then. I don't mean it like that then. I thought you were going to talk about something else. I like both personally. I really like seeing a V8 climber rip a route up, and it's just like like there's one day one dude came in, and I've seen him come in a bunch. I don't know his name though, and a new set was up, and he just was like, okay, I'm gonna do the 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and like with like maybe 30-second rest within like half an hour to an hour, knocked out the whole wall, like V7s and all.
Yeah.
And it was just like, as I'm like just plinking on my routes and stuff like that, I would just look and I'm like, holy shit, he's on the 5 now. Oh, he's on the 6 now. Oh, he's on the 7 now. Like just like an assassin just took them out, you know? It's really cool seeing those. They almost happen so fast that you can't learn anything.
I know.
You know, unless you ask them questions, which I try to
Because
do.
there's such a wide gap between you and them. You're like, I can't even perceive of how that was done.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But then I love it when people ask me like, hey, do you know the beta on this? Or how do you start this route? Or this move's really getting me. I love when people ask me for help
too.
on things.
I love that too. But I don't desire it as much.
I think it's the teacher in me. I think I have a teaching bone.
Definitely, if you're the way that you were talking about having kids.
Yeah, which is, I thought that actually, because you said I don't really care so much for the teaching part, and I was like,
at least not yet. I might get there. You know, you've got 2 years on me. I think you're 20. Well, no, you're 22. You're 22. I just turned 21 in June. So, yeah, I might get there. But it seems like you've had that as a really core part of your character for a while.
Yeah,
so.
I definitely have. I like teaching.
A lot of men I've met enjoy teaching. Not a lot of women.
That's interesting, right?
It is interesting.
But I've met a lot of people that don't plan on having kids, at least right now, our age. Some of it's relating like climate and stuff and different things like that.
I feel like a lot of it relates to our generation just generally feels overwhelmed more than other generations do. And it's going to make me sound like a boomer, but like with the internet and all of the news that's accessible to us right now, I can imagine how people would look at that and be like, yeah, man, the American dream doesn't make any sense in this crazy world.
Yeah, you weren't getting bombarded with notifications and updates on the current state of affairs when the hammer was invented. Like all these things are tools, but now the tools modern tools that have been developed are all notification based. In a sense, that's one aspect to them, at least, right? Where the hammer was made and it was just made to hit nails easier and quicker and more efficiently. But now the phone's made and it's made to do all of those things and then some, and also inform you. If you just subscribe to one thing, it'll tell you almost a wealth of information. Or if you just dive into one Google search, you can hit whatever you want.
It's because the input is so variable. With the hammer, you just get that one input, and with the phone, it's just like it's coming from every single direction.
It's a Swiss Army knife.
Yeah, Swiss Army knife. A modern Swiss Army knife. I read Permanent Record by Edward Snowden last year, and it put a lot of things into perspective for me technologically. So, like, I'm a little jaded.
Do you try to be anonymous with your internet, with social?
I don't.
After reading that, did it make you feel?
It made me feel more worried, but I did not change my behavior based on it. It's way too much for me to maintain because I already don't really understand the internet that well, and like it's another thing where it touches everything, so you have to be aware of every move you make, everything you do, and there's an app for everything. Everything's automated, everything's online, so it's really difficult to maintain that, and I kind of just gave up. I'm like, whatever happens. I will be aware of it so I can maybe prepare if I need to, whatever that would mean, but I'm not really making it a prior concern for me right now.
I want to circle back to something with relationships.
Okay.
You might have some insight on this. I want to formulate the question well. Something like, I think it seems you said that you like a more traditional kind of strong man, right?
I would omit the traditional, but yeah.
Well, like traditionally based strong men were what came through history, right? Does that make sense?
I guess so.
So you want a strong man, which is traditional to
I
see
just
in men.
want a man stronger than me.
Which is a traditional value.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I was saying
Well,
by
I
traditional.
suppose too. I don't know. I think the language we use is a little bit different, so it's making me
What? Okay.
It's harder for me to like. I'm hesitating a bit.
What would you use, I guess?
I. You know what? Let's go with your thing. It's gonna be a lot of me like tripping over my words
Okay.
and trying to explain something that's very difficult for me to explain.
Where my head's going, and this is going to be a really patched question together.
Power through it.
It's something like there was a lot of validity to what are considered traditional values, and some of that's cultural, but a lot of things are cross-cultural, and they worked for the times, and arguably a majority of them still work to this day. But one of the things my head's been in with the relationship stuff is how much does it need to be maybe adapted right now? And what to connect to some things I think that have changed is in general, societies have gotten a lot safer. So at least there's a lot more technology around for self-defense for women, and also streets are, depending on where you are, obviously a lot safer to go out and be alone. And also in the case of rape, there's still things to curb that, right, where you don't have to bear the child and different things like that. Apart from that extremism, there's also just within dating itself, with contraceptives that women can take and also men can take. There's this allowance for a lot more sexual fluidity with our society now, and we saw the peak of that with the sexual revolution in the 1970s or 80s in the Western culture. Things like that, the advent of the birth control pill, society's getting safer. I think I had another thing I usually bring up when I think about this. But different things like that have kind of changed what is commonly referred to as our dating marketplace. It's a maybe weird way to think about it, but it kind of works where, I mean, some people have higher value, and higher value women are looking for higher value men, right? So that's kind of the idea behind it. What I'm constantly trying to figure out is what that looks like in general, with also, I think, society allowing more opportunity for women. That's changed up the dynamic where you don't have to rely on a man necessarily to provide for yourself. You can go out and get a job and provide for yourself and make your own career out of things. There can be the career woman these days and different things like that. So yeah, there's not really a question in that, but all these things have changed. And I guess what I'm trying to figure out is like, what traditions do we need to shift with that? What traditions do we need to keep is the idea. Because I think some of the traditional things are good.
Yeah.
But there's...
Such as?
Well, I think...
Go ahead.
I think for me personally, I think in general, the man should lead.
Okay.
I think that I don't want to speak my own personal beliefs particularly. I think in general, a lot of people can choose their own free thing. I have a bit of a libertarian bone where I don't care what you do as long as you don't do anything negative towards somebody. You can do whatever you want.
You're in good company.
Yeah. I think what I would want to see in a perfect society is just to have the most educated decision. And that's kind of where I'm trying to figure this out, so that people are more educated in how they choose partners and friends and relationships and stuff like that, is where I'm coming from with this. And I'm still trying to figure that out for myself. I think some people want that 50-50 split within a relationship. and then there's some still traditionalists that want a more man breadwinner. I'm still trying to figure that out within myself. I think that's where some of the hesitation is I'm not fully sure still to this day where I'm at. I'm gonna figure it out before I have kids because it needs to be sorted.
Yeah.
But that's why my head's in this space.
Interesting.
Traditional things like marriage, that's an easy one. Okay. Kids have a lot easier time with a 2-parent household. You need your mom around, but you also need your dad around for really strong development. That's an easy one that I can say. Yeah.
Now, what are the things that you would think to avoid on the other side of the coin?
Well, like
in finding a partner, I mean.
I think I wrote this line came to me this last week. It was something like in the last few decades, like 1, 2, 3-ish decades ago, we needed to give more love to those that are hard. And what I meant by that is people that are in more of those rigid traditional values, right? And then we've rubber banded and pendulum swung to the other direction where there's a lot more, it's not a good word, but just like lovey-dovey, free-flowy kind of stuff right now, where there's not a lot of hard discipline to people right now.
Yeah.
And it's swung the other way where you see the gold star ribbons for just participating in different things like that, where it's swung the other way where no, you're good as you are, which is the worst thing to tell a kid, where it's like
anyone.
Yeah, I'm depressed now. This is the best I got. What the fuck are you telling me? Like that's a horrible thing to tell a kid. It's like, no, you're not good right now, and you have potential. And so,
you are what you make of yourself.
Yeah, and you also have that redemptive element to do better.
Yeah.
Right.
Because when you're telling somebody that you are perfect the way you are, you don't see what they see when you're looking at you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
I get what you're saying. Yeah.
But I think in a recent history, we had a lot of rigidity with how people thought you should be going to church and different things like that within our Western society, and how men and women commingle and everything like that. You have, I think, personally, and the data oddly enough supports it, where you should be married before you cohabitate within a relationship, which is really interesting. And data supports that, and it's really interesting. I don't know if you knew about that.
So you should get married before you live together?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
You have a higher chance of your marriage working out if you marry before than after.
I have heard that, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
and
weird.
Yeah. And it's hard to exactly make out what that is, but it is interesting. We were talking about things being out of the steps. I know people right now that have been dating for 6 years plus have not even no mention of engagement and are in the process of buying a house right now.
Yeah.
And to me, that's like, as a man,
Bad
for
move?
me personally, how I would set my life up, that's a disrespect to the woman.
Okay.
I personally take that, because I'm going to focus on if you're doing it for economic reasons or financial reasons to have some land or whatever reason, fine. But like, you do something when you cohabitate and not marry. And how it was explained to me was, this is the quote. It's, you're the best I can trick for right now. And because when you do that, you leave the back door open, because there's no, there's that legal attachment, but then also there's just that spiritual bond, whether you're religious or not, where you have a big congregation or small congregation of everybody you love in one place, and you, in front of them, you tell them, I will be faithful to you. Like that in broad strokes is kind of what a marriage, getting married is, right?
Yeah.
And there's the legal stuff that comes with it and different things like that. But it's that fortifying of your connection to that person, right? And when you move in before you do that, then you're saying, you're leaving that back door open,
Interesting.
right?
Yeah.
And that's why, to me, it's a bit of a disrespect if you're going to be that serious in buying a house together, which is bigger than living together. But you're serious enough to do that, but you're not serious enough to close that back door, so to speak, and in front of everybody, because buying the house is in a sense like behind closed doors, right? Where if you invited all your family and friends and said, you're the person I'm going to be with through thick and thin,
Mm-hmm.
it's an interesting dynamic, right? I'm of the idea that they're still my friends, and I'm interested to see where their story will play,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't look good for you. And you can even rely on statistics with that.
Interesting. Okay. So that is interesting.
I guess one more thing is like, for me personally as a guy, I like to be the decider.
Yeah.
And I'm still trying to figure out if I just need to be a major decider and the person I'm with is a major decider as well. And we're just like making super decisions together, as like the word like power couple comes up with, where like 50-50 we're making crazy super decisions.
Yeah.
Or if that manifests in me where I make most of the decisions and the other person is fine with going with it. So for me, it's figuring it out. But personally, as a guy, I want to be making decisions.
I see.
How that meshes with the other person, I'm figuring out currently.
Mm-hmm. So do you think that people who do stay together, don't get married, and they are looking into buying a house together, do you think those are like the 50-50 couples? Or do you think it's a mix of them, and then like what you're talking about, where it's I want to make the decision? Who do you think is making the decisions there?
Like who wears the pants in the house?
Yeah, I guess so. Like who decided?
With that particular friend group or friends, it was the guy making the decision to go out and buy it.
Okay.
If that answers your question.
Then I understand what you mean when you say disrespect.
Oh yeah, he was.
Okay.
It was because I was asking her, and she was like, her phrasing of it was like, he's doing all of it.
Oh.
He chose the place, and maybe he got
Okay.
her input right, and she's totally about it. It's not like she's against it, but like, she's like, no, it's not me. It's like, it's that guy.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Okay. I accept
He's
no
deciding.
responsibility.
Yeah.
I just accept the benefit.
Of a house.
Yeah.
But it's weird.
That is weird. Okay, but now I understand. I was a little confused when you were talking about disrespect, because I know some people who like seem like they're both on board, who they're in a relationship and they've known each other for like maybe they've lived together for like 8 years, a decade, whatever, and they are looking into buying a house. Maybe they do get married, but they don't have the ceremony. They just sign the papers. I have one friend who her relationship is basically that way, where they got married, but they didn't do the whole ceremony. It was just it was all formality. Mm-hmm. But they love each other and they've lived with each other for a while, and they seem perfectly comfortable. It seems like they're doing the 50-50 decision making there. So do you think that is the same?
You're good.
Do you think that's the same sort of situation? Would you feel like equally as uncomfortable with that as you would with the situation with your friends where he's making all the decisions?
So to start, I'm just like all for people making their own choices. That's not personally how I would set my life up. In that order of things, I don't want like a big ceremony, but I want some, because I think there is a nice symbolic element to doing that in front of those you love. Yeah. There's a level of sincerity, and that's why I use the word respect, in the sense that you're very serious about a person, and if you're dating them, then if you're serious about them, then you should be respectful of them and make it a public thing,
and
right?
Respectful of their family too.
Yeah. Because
you're not just marrying them; you're
marrying into a family, right?
Yeah.
Is the idea of marriage. So personally, I want to set my life up. I like to be, lately I've loved the idea of just being an observer, of like, I'll be here. I'm going to add just a little bit, like they closed the day before last month, the 30th, which this month was the start of quarter 3. And we're which was technically the first day of our recession within the US. And so I was texting them the 30th and I'm like, did you guys close on the house yet? And they're like, yeah, we just closed it today. And I'm like, tomorrow we're in a recession technically. And they go, what? So different things like that. Like I'm still going to feed them some like financial advice, a little bit unsolicited, but that's what friends do, you know, just to keep each other informed. Like I like it when people tell me when I'm maybe not doing the best things, even just keeping me informed.
Do you consider yourself a nosy person?
No, because I didn't try to pry of like, why is he buying this house? Is he doing it to make up for other things? Is he actually doing it for economic reasons? I didn't try to pry. I was just like, all right, we'll have a housewarming party. Like I'm on board. I'm going to observe. You know, I'm not going to affect their decision and place my values on them because that's what they value, right? Yeah. Is my tact to it. And I know them well, but not enough to like sit them down and be like, guys, the statistics don't set up with this. Like, make a whole portfolio of why it's a bad idea. Like, that's not my relationship with them, so there's no place for that.
And at that point, you're just accepting responsibility over their relationship too.
And it's their relationship, and their responsibility to each other, right?
Yeah.
So
that would be overstepping boundaries.
Yeah. And I think it works for some people, but some is not the majority. And that's what I'm trying to figure out. Right? The exception is not the rule.
Yes.
So, with your friends that I think you said were together before they got married for like a decade and cohabitated and possibly did a lot of other things that are contrary to evidence, and they're working out right now, great. I'm happy for them, you know? Just the caveat I would say to that is like, that's still, at least the cohabitation thing I know for sure is not supported by statistics.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know the statistics, but the more people that I've met have been like that. I've met more people like that than not, I think.
Yeah.
So
of the cohabitating variety?
Yeah, I've met more people who are kind of 50-50 type relationship than the you know one is leading. So I couldn't really speak on that that very well. That's
the one I know for sure, that and like marriage is good for kids. I know those two statistics pretty well. So for them, if they are actually happy, it's tough to say like who's actually happy and everything like that, you know. And some guys really enjoy that 50-50 split. Some guys enjoy the woman making more decisions. I'd say most guys like to make a lot of decisions.
Yeah.
So there's a tricky balance between that. I feel like I'm getting interviewed at this point. Like, I feel like I switched the tables on me.
A little bit. I want to understand your position before I even attempt to, you know, prescribe or
Well, we could just like have a thought bubble on this as well.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not looking for an antidote.
I know. This is something that I don't think about nearly as much, and I need to think about more as my sad future comes ever closer.
Well, that's the tricky thing with being a woman, is you kind of have to figure this out kind of quick. Like for me, I could have kids at like 40, 50, 60. I've heard of a guy having 170 or 80.
Yeah, my friend was, his dad was 70 when he was born.
Yeah. So as a guy, like it's a lot lower ratio, but you're in menopause at that point as a normal woman, you know?
Yeah.
And so for you guys, it's kind of deciding at the latest by 30 is like a number I hear often, you know?
Yeah, which is why what we were talking about, women have to be a little bit more choosy.
Yeah.
Because like this is the person that is going to determine the trajectory of my kid's future and my future and my security. Yeah, I had a lot of that thinking growing up, of wondering about that, and a lot of my mom kind of drilling that into my head. And the values here in the West are a little different than the values that my parents taught me. Like, I mean, that's a whole nother conversation.
I'm curious.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, here's something that came up. recently, actually, for me. There are a lot of things that Americans find weird about my culture, and a lot of things that we find weird about
Our culture.
our culture. Yeah, yeah. And I keep saying we, they, you. You know what I mean. It's language, but
Because you have a foot in both
yeah,
spaces, so to speak, right?
pretty much, yeah. And speaking on cosmetic surgery in the West, the view of cosmetic surgery in the West versus the view of cosmetic surgery in the East, it's a little bit different. When I was growing up as a Persian girl, one of the, like, I guess, rites of passage, so to speak, for Persian girls is rhinoplasty. We have a really, really distinct nose shape, and I'm perfect example. But when I was younger, that's not really a thing here. It's our values are in different places, but when I was younger, like when I was 16 or 14 or so, I remember my dad would tell me, like, when you turn 18, I'm gonna find you the best surgeon, you know, and I'm gonna take you to Iran, and I'm gonna find you the best surgeon, and he's going to do surgery on your nose and correct it, so to speak. And that was just like a normal thing. And so when I would say that, or when that would come up in conversation with my Western friends, they'd be like, what the fuck, you know, what is that? And as I was growing up, I just kind of learned to consider it as like you know, dad, whatever. I guess that's your thing. That's your boomer values.
Okay, boomer.
Okay, boomer. And recently,
My dad just tells me fun little jokes from his Facebook page, but your dad wanted you to get plastic surgery.
it's like having braces in Iran.
Oh.
That's
Did
the
you
way
get
it's
it?
treated. Did I?
Did you have the surgery?
No, dude, look at me.
Okay.
Look at me. This is not the nose I would choose, first of all. But
What is that? Like, how far does that go back, or what does that mean? Like, why the nose? I have so many questions.
I do too, but I could give you a better answer later. But I think I think it is a relatively modern. As soon as we discovered plastic surgery, we it's like similar to how Korean people, you know, they have surgery on their eyes to make them look more like Western eyes or stuff like that. As soon as we discovered what we can do, what we can make ourselves look like with plastic surgery, it's like it's just a mixture of different things in the paradigm of beauty and like what we consider beautiful depending on where you are.
I guess we have circumcision.
Yeah, circumcision. That I guess that is cosmetic.
It's not plastic. It's just they cut a bit off.
I was thinking more along the lines of like breast and like that sort of plastic where it's like body modification. In the West, I think it's more that way. And like with older people, you get the facelifts and celebrity. You hear all kinds of stuff from celebrity remedies. So it's like that, but straight teeth is another one. I mentioned braces. Straight teeth is very desirable in the West. It's not the same in the East. They don't really care about straight teeth. In fact, I think in China they prefer like the snaggletooth or something like that. I've heard that. I don't know if it's true, but in Iran, it's just more beautiful to have a smaller nose, and that's popular. So basically, it's like I called it like a rite of passage. It's basically just like getting braces. After you hit a certain age, it's usually expected that women get nose jobs, and it's like nothing. I didn't really care for that as I was growing up, and I thought it was. I want to get to this. I thought it was just my dad, but like recently, my mom brought it up.
Like recently?
Yeah, like. Oh. Twice, but with like a couple of months in between. But I thought that it was just a man thing, you know, that Iranian males were picky about that. And I was like, well, I don't give a fuck, you know, like, who cares what they want? I'm me. And then relatively recently, before I turned 21, actually, it may have even been when I was 19 or 21. My mom said offhand, she was like, "Oh, I really want to find a good surgeon for you, so we can fix your nose," and that made me so sick when I heard it. I was like, I couldn't eat for the rest of the night. I felt awful because that realization set in that it's like, this is not just a man thing. This is like a full cultural thing, and the women are on board.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then recently, like a month ago or so, she's like, "Okay, yeah, next time we go to Iran, you've got to get your nose done, or if you want to." They always do that, like, if you want to, you know, because they don't want to force you, of course, but there's an expectation there that you do. But it's going back to what we were talking about like the dominant social paradigm, and how you asked what makes it different for the East and in comparison to here in the East. There's a huge emphasis on having that traditional family and marrying into money rather than marrying for love, based on love or anything like that. Connection. Yeah. It's more just a business agreement, which is why many parents get divorced, and why it's very difficult for women to get divorced in Iran and in the East in general, as opposed to for men, it's very easy for them to get divorced. So the women have to be especially choosy there. Yes, I don't know if that answers your question.
I don't remember my question, to be honest.
I think what you asked that got me on this tangent was how is it different, and I thought of the most personal example to me.
Yeah. How do you plan on getting married, or like? We've talked about kids, but like for yourself personally, because you've kind of had one foot in both regions, right? Mm-hmm. So both have kind of rubbed off on you a little bit. Yeah. What personally do you?
I do think I want to get married, but I think I want to do those things later as opposed to soon. I'm in no rush.
Yeah.
That is one of the things in my life that I have foregone control of, and I think that is one of the things that is going to come to me when I am ready, or when I can handle it.
Yeah.
You know, it's not something that's right in front of me, but I would like to get married. Kids are neither here nor there at the moment, but I'll tell you this thing. I don't think I want to get married to an Iranian man. For sure not. Not just because of the things that I got into, but like his mother. Persian mother-in-laws are the worst. They're the worst. Queens of gaslighting. No one's ever good enough for their son.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Why marry if you're not planning on having kids? Right?
Yeah, that's a good question. I haven't thought about it that deeply. But
because like you could just have this is my boyfriend for a while if you wanted to.
Yeah, I don't want that though.
Yeah.
There's something, why not? There's something really valuable in having a companion who you would die for and who would die for you.
So that level of, like we talked about, sincerity and respect and all those different things.
Mm-hmm. There are very few things I think in life that are better than knowing that you have someone you would die for. And for a lot of people, for just about everyone, that is kids. Yeah,
that's interesting. A lot of people would say I would die for my kids.
Yeah.
But for you, it seems like it's more I would die for that hypothetical husband, right?
Yeah. Because it's something that is more accessible to me than kids are, I think. It just, my mind conceives of it better than kids. Because when I look at kids, I don't really feel that much.
But your own kids.
But your own kids.
You bake those and pop them out yourself.
I know.
Yeah. That's your superpower.
That's
I can't do that, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
I can't.
That's true.
I can spread my seed, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
But I can't do any baking.
Oh God.
You know what I mean, though.
I do know what
You
you
know,
mean.
I have the starter yeast.
Oh,
that sounded better in my head.
that's
But
awful.
but you're the one that can bake it.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, I think I don't see myself as a woman. I see myself as like an individual, for lack of a better term. I see myself as me, and I don't really accept. I'm not necessarily proud of what I was born to be.
Like the expectations. Are you what do you mean born to be?
I mean, like, I'm not proud of being a woman. I'm not proud of being Iranian. Because I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything to earn, I would have to earn pride for that. I mean, in the words of, like, George Carlin, like, respect should be earned based on the things that you do and not necessarily what you are. And so my entire life, I basically see myself that way. I don't really see myself as like a creature that can do this thing by virtue of birth. I more like I said, I put my value more on like the things that I can do outside of what the expectations are of someone of my species, gender, race, whatever. Yeah.
What I think of when you say that is I think it's better on a side thought in a sense to assess how much somebody is a Christian based on their actions and not what they say. But I take that to anybody. Like I don't, you can listen to people, but if you really want to know what they're about and what they value, you look at what they do. Right.
Mm-hmm. There's a difference between what people purport to believe and what they actually do.
Yeah. Where they put their body.
Yeah.
What spaces they go in.
I don't think people should lie, therefore I have never lied.
Was that a lie?
It's just an example.
Never lied?
I've lied. Everyone's lied.
There you go.
Everyone's lied.
There you go.
But that's the principle I'm getting at here,
Yeah.
where it's like what you say that you believe.
No, I
usually
always tell the
doesn't-
truth. It's
Yeah.
like, no, the fuck you don't.
Yeah.
You lied to me yesterday. Yeah. No, I have definitely, what was I was thinking about this Friday.
Christianity and how.
You want to talk about Christianity? Oh, no. What were you saying?
No. I was trying to go back to what you were talking about to help jog your memory.
Oh, no. On Friday, I believe everybody's my friend, but the good friends that I want to keep in my close circle, there's people that like do things that are very casual about them and they just do them for fun, and it's fine when they take a week off. And if you want to set your life up like that, that's fine. But the people I want around are the ones that constantly want to get better at their hobbies, that want to reach that next level, that enjoy what they do, but then also that pursuit of the next level and beating your yesterday clone is really big to them, right?
Yeah.
And I like those kind of people because like I was at Wooden Mountain climbing with other friends.
Yeah, how was that, by the way?
It's a really cool gym. I highly recommend it. There's some really creative sets and fun sets.
Do they grade harder than?
I'd say they're at least a half grade to a grade harder than our gym.
Yeah, most gyms are in my experience.
Ours are sometimes very soft.
Yeah.
Sometimes par to soft.
I agree.
Are great.
It's a university, so they're expecting everyone to come in and there's tall people, short people, whatever. Anyway, continue.
The people there, like my friends there, took at least a week off, which is fine, but I wouldn't be okay with that personally.
Climbing, you mean?
Yeah, I would give myself for a lot of things. I would give myself grace in that, but I wouldn't necessarily let it sit with me well because I like to have that barb in my butt or that
fire under your
that
ass.
fire that fire to be like, I got set back this week.
Yeah.
I need to work it, keep working, right? That's what I like, because to get to that next grade, whether it's climbing or to be better at crafting a sentence that I like to write, or better at having a conversation with this or anything like that, is big to me. And I know people that go to their work that work in a grocery store and don't plan on staying there the rest of their life, but they give their all every time they hit that 8-hour shift of wanting to be the best grocer they can. And so I appreciate people like that really put their heart and soul into things, even in work maybe they don't enjoy, but they want to be the best at while they're there, you know?
But you don't fear burnout because you have maintenance days, yeah?
Maintenance. Yeah. Having that meta intelligence of understanding, okay, I'm not going to push it today. I'm going to do my bare minimum, depending on who you are, you know, that could be still doing a lot of things, but just doing them on average or average for you, but still try to hit them. Because some people will say, I don't feel good today. I don't have to do anything. It's a slack day for me. And if that works for you, fine. Again, like I'm more speaking from personal, I would get more down on myself and lose more ground if I did that instead of trying to stand my ground, or instead of most days pushing 3 inches, I push 1 inch, you know? I think like doing it is maybe that inch, right? Because putting action into the world sometimes is very hard.
Yes. It usually is. I agree with you 100%. And then it's just that small issue of like, how do you quantify that, and which is different. How do you quantify actual progress, which is different between people and between hobbies and grades. With weightlifting, like you do, it's very linear, it seems, but with climbing, not so.
Yeah. I said it kind of earlier, to restate it, it helps when I've been doing it for almost a decade now, that you know, if you're paying attention, you know yourself in it and everything. But you know, with climbing, like on Friday, it was a good day for me. I was sending some 5s within that gym and 4s and stuff like that, which is a good day for me, especially on a gym that's harder than what I'm used to, you know?
Yeah.
And also it's tricky when it's like a one-time thing, because you can't project things.
Yeah.
So you have to take that. So different things like that, you just take into account. If it's like your normal gym and you're going to it and you're like, this is an off day, then like someday, like I've battled tendonitis, an overworked right bicep tendon a few times climbing, and just understanding not pushing that and then taking a week off is a lot better than busting a tendon and having to take a
month of recovery
or more months. Tendons are crazy. They take a long time. So
especially since you don't really get them back.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that answers your question of just kind of maintaining, or like when it comes to pain, easily back off of that. But there's a difference between pain and being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
That's I think something.
There's a term in that they use, I think, in the military, that's like, are you hurt or are you injured?
Yeah. Exactly. I've heard that actually. Yeah. And those maintenance days, it's like the maintenance days are when you're injured and you just need to limp by.
But do you have to push it until you're injured? Or can you like forecast that injury and be like, all right, I'm going to slow it down a bit.
I'm really good about I'm really good about my weightlifting. I haven't had any major tears or anything like that in my muscles. And that's partly because I haven't really gone for numbers like big heavy squats or deadlifts or bench presses. Personally, like I've worked the Olympic lifts often. I haven't exactly recently. But pushing the numbers can really hurt you, because on the professional end, squatting over 1,000 pounds is pretty wild, right? And so, thankfully I haven't had any tears like that. Generally it with that particular issue, it comes down to sleep and recovery. It just means I'm not recovering enough and I need to sleep a little bit more so my body can repair itself. So that helps out a lot. Been trying to emphasize sleep a lot with me and having quality sleep as well as quantity of sleep.
Sleep is so crucial. There's this sleep scientist that I'm interested in.
I might know. Who is it?
I forget his name.
Oh.
But if you remember,
He wrote a book.
Did. He spoke about sleep quality and how you reach like, God, it's been so long since I reviewed any of the literature, any of his work, but like you talk about REM sleep and how when you reach
Matthew Walker.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Matthew
REM
Walker.
sleep. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, if you haven't pulled up, I probably would recite this rather badly, but like if you have poor sleep equals shorter life.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically the spirit of one of the things that he was talking about, is that bad sleep literally knocks years off of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have like a good enough sleep, you can't. If you have very poor sleep, you cannot make up for that deficit fully.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it scares me into sleeping. But I'll say, as a person who struggles a lot with getting to sleep, it's very it's very interesting to read about that stuff, because like sleep and having quality sleep improves your memory, it improves your performance, your health, everything overall. I mean, how many car accidents have happened due to a lack of sleep over, like drunk driving? That's something that I feel every day. I struggle a lot with sleep. Yeah.
For me lately, an eye mask and a noise emitter has been very helpful.
I have an eye mask and earplugs.
Okay.
Ear Pro.
You go the opposite way. I like a lot of chaos in my room with brown noise playing.
Occasionally, see, brown noise, white noise, there's all these colors associated with them. I don't get it. What's the difference between brown noise and white noise?
To me, brown noise is a little deeper, like in tone.
It doesn't make you shit your pants, right?
No, that's the brown note.
Yeah. Anyway.
I know exactly what you mean by that.
Yeah.
Is that real or is that
I think
fictitious?
that's bullshit.
I would love for it to be real.
I would love for it to be real too, because automatically you could definitely create an instrument.
But yeah, sleep is huge. That's how I know if I'm not getting enough sleep and I'm not keeping up on my hygiene, which is a lot of showers.
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm pushing things too hard. Those are my gauges.
How many times a day do you shower?
Depends on how much I'm working out.
Yeah.
If I work out, usually I'll shower after because I'm sweaty.
So once a day, twice a day?
Oh, shower at most once a day. I don't think I shower twice. But I know I'm pushing it when like I work out and then have to eat, and then I'm like, shit, I need to go to bed, and then skip the shower, even though it takes less than 10 minutes, and go to bed. Yeah. And then, because in my brain, I'm like, I'm going to get sweaty again tomorrow. Like, can't I just not? And then I have done it. I try not to prefer to do it, because then I slip on hygiene, and I'm a slob.
Yeah, I'm quite anal about that. I shower twice a day, sometimes 3 times.
3 times.
Rarely 3 times. Okay,
You're the opposite in me in a sense. What is that? That's interesting. Is that a disgust sensitivity?
Well, not necessarily. I think I sweat a lot.
I sweat a lot too.
Yeah.
I'm sweating now.
Me too.
I'm sweating a ton.
Yeah.
It's too hot in this room.
It is. It's quite warm. As soon as you turn the camera on, I was like, am I just nervous or is it really hot here? But yeah, I sweat a lot. And I just hate feeling sticky. That's all it comes down to. I just don't like feeling sticky. And like also as a woman, hygiene is like I feel like I have to be way more careful about hygiene as well as a woman, just because I'm secreting more stuff just in general. I don't really shower 3 times a day very often anymore, but when I wasn't in school and I was working full time, I would usually shower in the morning. Then after work I would shower, and then I would go work out or do fuck all, and then I would shower once again at night.
Okay.
And usually pretty quick showers too. I waste so much water.
Are you soaping up every time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds like a lot.
But I don't wash my hair every day.
Okay.
I wash my hair like every other day, every 3 days.
Yeah. Okay. Is that time intensive, or are you pretty quick about it?
I'm usually pretty quick about it, but it could be, I mean, it would save me a lot of time if I would just go with the one shower, but I'd feel grimy all day. So
Let me lay a question on you.
sure.
What are some life-changing events that have impacted your identity the most?
So I'm a zoology major, and I've really always loved animals ever since I was a very young child. The immediate thing that comes to my mind is an experience that I had in Iran, and it was at a wedding, and all my friends know the story because I can't shut up about it. But traditional Iranian weddings, they would bring out a lamb, and traditionally they would slaughter the lamb at the wedding. It would represent, prosperity and good fortune for the couple. And I didn't know that. I was 7 years old. So I go outside and I see this lamb, and I make friends with the lamb because I didn't care much for talking to other people. I've always been that way. I was always the kid who would go, find your dog and hang out with your dog or a cat or whatever. I'd be chasing them all around the house.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And so I made friends with this lamb, and I loved it. I loved it for like the 30 minutes that I... But I didn't know. I was like, oh, look, an animal. And I was having the time of my life. And this guy comes out, and it's an adult man, and he's been drinking, I think. By the way, in Iran, you're not allowed to drink. They do it anyway.
Yeah, on the low.
On the low, yeah.
Low.
You're also not supposed to sell pork, but they're starting to sell pork under the table. But came out, and he was like, oh, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm playing with the lamb, and I was petting it and stuff. And he was like, their tradition is that they kill the lamb at the end of the wedding. And I was like, no. I was like, no. And I was like really, really worried that. So my mom comes out later on, and I'm like crying. I'm like, Mom, don't let them kill the lamb. And I was really upset, and I was sobbing. She's like, no, it's okay. They're not going to kill it. They don't kill it. It's just they bring the lamb out here to show, and then the lamb goes away. He goes to a farm, and he's really happy and whatever. Anything that you would say to a kid to make them stop crying. And so she's like, just come inside, just have fun. And eventually, I guess I agreed to come back inside. And when I went back outside, the lamb was gone. And I was like, where did it go?
Yeah.
Where did it go? And I was like, fuck, they killed it. I was so
You knew at 7 they killed it?
I was so sad. Yeah, I knew, because I didn't know what else could have possibly happened to it. Because I knew at that point even that my mom would lie to me to pacify me. Every kid knows that.
Yeah.
And when she was like holding me while I was crying, she's like, it's okay, let's go for a walk. And I remember the air was really nice and fresh, but I was just walking down, and I was really sad, and I was crying, and it was just like blood. And then 2 feet later, and then it was like a lot of blood, and then there was a little piece of this opal covered like intestinal tract that was just on the street, and I fucking lost it. That was like blood on the streets of this poor animal.
Yeah.
That, I think, was a really life-changing thing for me as a kid. I don't know how much it dictated of my life, of what my values are, because I still eat meat. I like to eat meat. I can kill an animal if I need to.
With my bare hands.
With my bare hands. I'm hunter certified. I can do all those things.
Yeah.
I'm perfectly comfortable with that nowadays. But like, I don't know, when I was a kid, it was just like feeling that loss and having no control over what would happen. That was a major learning moment for me. Just it was just, yeah, it's just the loss and the grief. And I made a painting that's kind of based off of those feelings, and I might show you later, but a picture of it. But it's like, it's like all of those feelings that I felt that are associated with like pain and grief and loss, and that is that was the moment that I could later on put a reason to why I felt that way. So yeah, that's
Can
one.
I show the painting? Like,
Yeah, of course.
Cool.
Of course.
Sweet.
I could bring it next time if you want.
That'd be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any final thoughts or anything else that we like? Is there anything you want to talk about or anything?
I think no, but I have a lot of. I'm very satisfied. For today, I'm very satisfied. Yeah.
Oh, for the talk?
Yes, for the talk, I'm very satisfied. I think I got out pretty much everything that I wanted to say.
Okay.
For the most part.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're just happy to be here. Is that what you're saying?
I'm very happy to have a conversation. I can't think of anything else at the moment.
Okay.
How's about that question?
This question right here?
Yeah.
This one, this little guy right here?
Who did?
What was it? Do you think Americans share a sense of unity, or has it become polarized? I think he's talking contemporarily.
Yeah.
That's actually interesting because you have both feet.
That identity. I think in a country that is as large as America, it is impossible for everyone to be on the same page with the population that we have, because there are so many people in this country, so many, and they come from different backgrounds, and their only reason for coming here is the place that they were there at before was worse. I think that it's become a lot easier to fool ourselves into thinking that we don't have the same values anymore. Because I think in reality, Americans are all generally feel similarly about certain things, but it's just the antidote to the things are what make that polarization really apparent. So it's not a question that I could give a very direct answer to, but I don't feel like America is very united at the moment.
Yeah.
Depending on your definition of what that means. But I'll say we have a flag that a lot of Americans care very much about, and that's not something that I see in other countries. Citizens of other countries don't care about their flag as much as Americans do. So I think we do have some things that unite us, but overall, I think it's easy. We've kind of fooled ourselves into thinking that we're not all, people who have a kind of a universal code of ethics.
Yeah.
That we operate under.
Yeah.
And I think that's just part of being a two-party system, and that's another conversation on its own. So
this is a bit divulging from that a bit, but I've known friends, they usually are in the university and they hate the flag, but still live here, which I find interesting. And I actually do mean hate, like they genuinely have disgust for America. And they were born here and raised here, and their parents, most of them were born here and raised here as well.
Yeah.
And it's that, I think the type of person I'm kind of describing.
I do. I'm intimately aware.
Yeah, where I know people that threw a Halloween party on the recent 4th of July as a bit of like a spoof on it, that it's like I don't know exactly how they wanted to phrase it, but like they didn't want to celebrate it with red, white, and blue and flags and sparklers. They wanted to celebrate it with costumes and a flavor of disgust for it as well, which was interesting to me to hear that. So what do you think about that? Because I think there's a lot of people that like the flag, but then I know people that really are disgusted by it right now for their own reasonings, and there's nuance on that. But
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, and I think it represents ultimately something different to them. The flag does than it does to the people who were responsible for raising it and the people who were responsible for protecting it. I think that it's because the flag to people who are young like us is more representative of, I think, the government than it is of the actual populace. And that's something that I learned from Iran again, because if you burn an Iranian flag in Iran, Iranians won't give a shit because it's representative of their government, not really of their own values. So I feel like people that are our age and despise the flag, despise it for the same reasons where they feel like the flag doesn't represent their values. In fact, it represents the antithesis of what their values are. And so for that reason, I think maybe they kind of, maybe they create like a straw man out of the flag. And it's not so much of a they're trying to, they have a desire to talk to people who do love the flag and who care about protecting it and the values that it represents. I feel like it's more they're trying to talk over the values that they associate with that flag that are in conflict with their own.
Maybe it's not a correct way to phrase it, but in a sense, are you happy to be in America or proud to be partly an American or within the Western culture?
Again, I wouldn't use the word proud just because it's just circumstance, but I am very happy to be here.
Okay.
I am extremely glad that I am here. Iran would have sucked.
To say the least, right?
To say the least, yeah. But out of all the things that I'm thankful, my father, whatever, I am at least very thankful that he made the decision to come here because he wanted me to be born here, because he wanted me to be born in a free country. And Iran is not a free country. It's a dictatorship. And I am so thankful for that decision, because I do not think that I could have reached the potential that I have right now and whatever potential that lies in me for the future. I don't think it would have been as easy to reach if I wasn't in America. So I'm very happy for that.
Awesome. That's good to hear. Yeah, I'm always curious because there's natives here, so to speak, that really despise it. But then every time I talk to people that are transplanted, so to speak, they're always very happy to be here. So it's funny.
Yeah, the alternative sucks.
Yeah. I think there's a flavor there or an idea there that they haven't experienced fully what that alternative would be. And there's a less gratitude for living here.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, it's not the same thing as loving the flag or loving the United States government. I am extremely skeptical of our government and any government. And I think that's healthy, and I think that's necessary. But it's just a different conversation, because that's a manufactured thing as opposed to what we're living, which is not really a manufactured thing. That's why I figured out from my personal life that politics, getting involved in them, being informed in that way, was kind of a waste of time for me for a little while. It was because that's all such manufactured nonsense in my head that I can't get on board without feeling like, an ape.
An ape?
An ape. I don't know how else to put it, but like I think of the monkey on the typewriter, or I'm investing in something that isn't really gonna be very. It's just like a bottomless pit.
Yeah, doesn't bear fruit.
Yeah, doesn't bear fruit.
Yeah.
Not my bag.
Awesome. Do you have a question?
I think it would be appropriate to have a question related to identity, because we've been talking about identity this entire time. Let's see.
Identity. It can be more than one if necessary as well, if you want a multi-part question or something.
Okay, let's see.
It's just a question is all I need.
Yes.
But you can make
yes. And
5 questions
We've
if
easily cleared like 4 hours so far. So.
you really wanted to. We really have. The time has flown by. Yeah, we've almost done 4 hours.
Good conversation.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Hmm. Let's see. Is maybe something like is fuck. Fuck, I thought I had a good one and I lost it. Oh shit. All right. Let's see.
What are you thinking right now? I can try to stimulate.
Okay, so I'm thinking about where what do you have a chosen identity that is different from your, like, I don't know, the ones that you were born
Was
into?
expected of?
Yeah, maybe was expected of.
Would it be fair to like say it like did you turn out differently than how your parents expected you to be? Do you like that?
I like that. Yeah.
Or your culture, society or something? That's a fun question. I like that. You can make a second too if you want, but whatever you want to do. That's a solid one.
A, B, C to F. Was there anything that you've done to deliberately set yourself apart from what was expected of you?
Ooh, I like it. Good stuff. Awesome.
All right.
Hedyeh?
Hedyeh.
Hedyeh? Is that right? Awesome. It's been great talking. I think we could do many more hours, honestly, and you can come back on anytime.
Hooray! I've enjoyed this a lot.
Yeah, this is very fun. I really enjoy these with people, especially people that have at least some thoughts on things. Because, like I said earlier, there's some that don't, which is fine. But it's nice when actually people have thought out opinions on
It's
things.
even better when you leave the conversation with more questions than answers.
Yeah. Is that you right now?
Well, more stuff to think about, I'll say. I have more stuff to think about now, I think. For sure, yeah.
If you want to promote anything, any causes or your personal warm piss in a cup Instagram or anything like that, this is the space to make it public.
Maybe don't promote lukewarm piss in a cup. But I do have an art Instagram called Kxanthic, Kxanthic. And it's been a little while since I've posted because it's been a little while since I've had the time to draw and paint. But I post various art there. I do traditional design, digital art, paintings, different media like that. And I'm also open for commissions if anybody is interested. So
Perfect.
yeah, there you go.
DM her, everybody.
There you go.
Come on.
Yes.
Make it rain.
Make it rain with all those
dollars.
all of those sexual deviant
Oh.
commission art that I'm sure are going to be coming my way as soon as I announce
Why do you
it.
think that's coming your way?
Because those are like the best ones.
Oh, okay.
Because it's like it's like I really have to fight myself to see the appeal in most of them.
Oh.
And you have to see the appeal in them in order to make good art.
Huh.
So
Interesting.
yeah. It's a
So
fun,
you
it's
like
a fun exercise.
you like making that type of art?
No.
No, because it challenges you.
Yeah, yes.
Is that-
I like making any type of art that challenges me. Just to be clear, when I'm making art, I'm always trying to do something that I didn't do in a previous piece of art. I'm always trying to be challenged. But like that stuff is particularly challenging because it's not a test of my skill. It's a test of my, I don't know, resolve,
Oh, interesting.
which is not usually tested for me
Okay.
as an artist. So
I'm imagining some big titty anime adaptions of famous presidents within the last decades coming your way. How's that sound?
that is hysterical. I'd love to be responsible for that type of art being seen by many, many, many lovely human beings on Twitter who happen to find my page.
Be a nice picture in the foyer, I would say. Just right above the fireplace, maybe.
Yeah.
Of just oh man, Biden with big ol' honkers.
Biden sama.
Biden with some big ol' mommy milkers.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Or even people who have already died.
Yeah.
Abe Lincoln.
I don't know many presidents. I don't know my history well. Abe Lincoln.
Babe Lincoln.
Babe Lincoln.
Lincoln pinup.
Babeden? No.
It was Daddy Trump.
Daddy Trump.
Yeah.
He's got some thick thighs.
He's
You could eat cake off his thighs.
God damn it, I gotta finish this question. Try to replay it in my head over and over again. Like, okay.
Whoops. Yeah, we've done like 4 hours. Almost.
Nice.
Not quite.
I've broken many sweats.
Me too. It's way too hot up here.
Yeah. Why does it... My palm's sticking to the paper. It's been really hot in general.
Yeah.
So far.
I'm gonna have to cut this out.
Yes. You can get up and turn it off.
Do you have any final thoughts, I guess, is what I was gonna leave
There we
to
go.
you?
All right, I'm good. Final thoughts? None that come to mind. I think we covered just about
We covered it a lot.
everything.
There's still more I think we could cover.
Oh, for
There's
sure.
tons.
For sure. I gotta eat though.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm hungry as fuck after all that thinking. Anyways. Hedyeh.
Hedyeh.
Hedyeh.